Chapter 1140. The Yellow Springs Underworld Path. Looking at the dark entrances in front of them, Su Fong and Fairy Xuanxin slowly moved forward. The map of the third floor of the underground palace appeared in their minds. There were more than a dozen underworld paths, and none of them had special passages. In other words, Su Fong would have to barge in like other cultivators. Fortunately, the map recorded the mechanisms in the Yellow Springs Underworld Path in detail. After silently understanding the map, he and Fairy Xuanxin arrived at a magnificent flat area that looked like an altar. In front of them was an entrance to the Yellow Springs Underworld Path. "Isn't this the first place? Fairy, you can come with us to explore the tomb." The two of them were sizing up the Underworld Path. Little did he know that a few figures were flying over. What a coincidence! They were the special disciples of Fire, Yin Divine Sun Sect, and Nine Heaven Star Palace. There were 3 of them in total. 2 of them were disciples of Huiyin Shinrikyo, and the other was a special disciple that Su Fong had met before, Lien Changxian. Lien Changxian. He had become a special disciple not as long as Chou Yun and Li Tianqi, but he was still very talented. Moreover, Su Fong knew that this person had a lot of feelings for Fairy Xuanxin. However, the one who spoke was not Lien Changxian, but the 2 disciples of Huiyin Shinrikyo. It was not difficult to see that these 2 disciples also had feelings for Fairy Xuanxin. However, Lien Changxian only glanced at Fairy Xuanxin. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked in another direction. Su Fong did not care about the special disciples of Huiyin Shinrikyo. However, Lien Changxian was different. He sighed inwardly. This guy's a proud guy. After being rejected by Fairy Xuanxin, his pride was hurt. Fairy Xuanxin nodded. "Thank you for your kindness. I still have to wait here for the disciples of the sect to come and meet up with them. Fairy, take care. If there is any trouble, just let me know. By the way, the sect sent us a message. They told us to be careful of demonic cultivators. They said that many of them have already snuck into the tomb." After the Huiyin Shinrikyo disciple finished speaking, he cupped his fists and flew toward the underworld path with Lien Changxian and the other disciple. People of the demonic path. These mere words caused Su Fong and Xuanxin to breathe heavily. The 2 of them no longer hesitated. Who knew what was in the underworld? Perhaps the great emperor's treasure was here. After a few breaths, the 2 of them arrived at the entrance of the underworld path. It felt as if they were about to enter the tomb for real. The combination of yin qi and demonic qi created a special kind of cold air, which greatly affected their defense. There are many entrances to the Yellow Springs Nether Path, but they're all connected on the inside. There are many demonic formations, and it's extremely dangerous. Su Fong became nervous the moment he stepped into the entrance. The 2 of them once again passed through the familiar pitch-black demonic qi. As soon as they passed through the formation, they unexpectedly saw a dozen or so heavily injured or poisoned cultivators painfully searching for a way out of the entrance. As soon as they saw Su Fong and Fairy Xuanxin, these people didn't have any expression on their faces. Instead, they were filled with terror as they tried to think of a way to leave this place. The underground palace wasn't a place where one could leave as they pleased. They didn't know what these people had experienced, but they clearly didn't have any thoughts about the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor's treasure. They just wanted to leave alive. Fairy Xuanxin also noticed something. At least she came to the conclusion that this underworld path shouldn't be where the Yellow Springs Great Emperor's tomb was located. Otherwise, these people would be fighting over the treasure. There were no cultivators from the 4 great powers, so the 2 of them didn't bother with them. They looked ahead and unexpectedly saw a faint demonic mist. The divine shackles were even more terrifying. The dark underground palace was covered in a haze. Some poisons, groans, and shouts came from the depths of the demonic mist from time to time. It gave people the feeling that the inside was a land of death that should never be stepped in. At this moment, Fairy Xuanxin didn't hesitate at all and stepped into the demonic mist first. Su Fong was stunned. He once again saw a different side of this woman. With such decisiveness, it was no wonder she was so strong. She wasn't inferior to the man in front of her. After entering the demonic mist, the cold air directly suppressed their defenses. It didn't affect Fairy Xuanxin much, but Su Fang's defenses immediately turned into black ice. You! Fairy Xuanxin was very shocked. She felt that this mysterious man in front of her should have heaven-defying strength. Why couldn't he suppress the cold air? Ha! Su Fang, who had almost turned into a frozen person, was like an ice sculpture. But a moment later, a huge force shattered the ice sculpture. There was also an invisible force that could actually make the cold air no longer shackle his defenses. This was because Su Fang was secretly urging the power of the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor, especially the wills of Qianlu and Baishan Ancient Demon. The original power came from the 9 Yin Qi of the Origin Saint. In this way, with 2 ancient demon wills and the special 9 Yin Qi, they could perfectly suppress any cold air in this underground palace. Seeing that Fairy Xuanxin was still shocked, Su Fang shrugged and smiled, indicating that it was fine. The latter was also relieved, but she still felt very strange. When the two of them entered the demonic mist, it was difficult for them to fly freely. Moreover, there was only demonic qi and no spiritual qi. This meant that after their true qi was exhausted, it would be difficult to replenish it. This was a demon for any cultivator. There was demonic qi. Wasn't that demonic cultivator like a fish in water here? It was impossible. Demonic qi was like true qi. Because of the different cultivation methods, the power was also very different. It could not be easily merged, devoured, and turned into power. Although demonic cultivators were much better than righteous cultivators in dealing with demonic qi, it was also very difficult to absorb the special demonic qi in this underground palace. The two of them could only seal their breathing and circulate their qi. Once the demonic qi was absorbed into their bodies, it would be very difficult. The result was very simple. The two of them suddenly stopped. It turned out that there were 2 cultivators in front of them. One of them had already died, and his whole body had turned into demonic ice. As for the other person, the surrounding demonic qi was constantly entering his body. Not only was his skin frozen, but he could not control his true qi, and it was seeping out. His whole body was gradually turning into a dry corpse. Demonic qi must have entered his body to cause such a miserable end. Whoosh! However, Su Fang suddenly flashed and arrived next to the expert who was still breathing. "You're going to die here, but you met me. You are very lucky, but I saved you, so you have to serve me for the rest of your life." Save. When that person heard that Su Fang could save him, he struggled to say something. Su Fang waved his hand, and a strand of demonic qi sucked that person into his palm. He then looked at the other corpse. Unfortunately, there was no more true qi or life force left. "You can save that person?" Xuanxin found it inconceivable. At this point, even a supreme expert would not be able to save that cultivator. Su Fang turned around. "Not necessarily. After all, the poison has already taken over most of his body. Let's give it a try. It's a pity for an expert to die. If we can save him, we'll save him. Fairy, we have to be even more careful. There seems to be a pair of eyes staring at us from up ahead." "I also feel a threat and killing intent coming from up ahead," replied Xuanxin. She and Su Fang cautiously advanced once more. The demonic qi covered them layer by layer, making it impossible for cultivators to walk out of it. Look, 2 hours later, they arrived at the deepest part of the demonic qi. Xuanxin suddenly stopped Su Fang and pointed at the ground in front of them. They cautiously walked forward. There were 2 blood-colored statues that were on the verge of shattering. These statues were very strange. They had no noses, eyes, ears, hands, or legs. The only thing missing was their facial features. However, there were some demonic runes on them, and they sent some blood qi from them. Everything in the underground palace is strange. We have to be careful. These puppets are most likely one of the underground palace's nether guards. Xuanxin also noticed something. Nether guards. It seemed Xuanxin knew quite a bit. Su Fang, on the other hand, sensed a trace of blood qi from these puppets. These puppets were clearly not ordinary. If they possessed blood qi, then they were alive. But now, they had already been petrified. Furthermore, their bodies were broken, and there were some sword marks on them. They had clearly been destroyed by an expert. Furthermore, he sensed a strong aura of the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor within the Nether Guards. They were indeed Nether Guards from the third layer of the Yellow Springs underworld path. They were not puppets owned by some cultivators. Xuanqin was constantly paying attention to their surroundings. Suddenly, she had Su Fong stand up. Look, the demonic chi is beginning to change. One moment, it's like a storm. The next moment, it's like a whirlpool. This way, cultivators will have a hard time walking out of this world of demonic chi. They won't be able to tell the direction. This underground palace only has demonic chi and no spiritual chi. The Yellow Springs Devil Emperor's tomb is indeed a place for the dead. After looking around for a while, the demonic chi slowly returned to normal. However, their surroundings were no longer the same as before. They once again moved forward. Even if Su Fong had the map of the underground palace, he still had to break out of the demonic chi. Fortunately, he had a way to tell the direction. He could sense a will coming from the depths. Inadvertently, the two of them were slowly moving forward in the demonic chi. Suddenly, the two of them heard an abnormal sound coming from their surroundings. A second later, Su Fong and Xuanqin summoned their flying swords almost at the same time. They flew into the air. Suddenly, a black figure that looked like a statue appeared in the demonic chi in front of them. When the demonic chi dissipated a little, a shocking stone snake was revealed. The stone snake was several times thicker than a bucket. It looked like a stone statue. However, when the snake swept its body in front of them, it was a huge black snake. It stared at them coldly. Some burning demonic chi appeared on the surface of the stone snake. After the demonic chi disappeared, the stone snake seemed to wake up and immediately coiled up. Moreover, stone men that were similarly revived appeared around them. They were the stone statues that they had seen before. They had no facial features and only had human bodies. At this time, they were not stone statues, but stone men. Xuanqin was on guard against their surroundings. Powerful Nether Guards. Just a little bit of our aura can revive them. Moreover, there are so many of them. Their aura seems to be very deep. It seems that even a stone man Nether Guard is very scary. Let's go. Without prior agreement, they fled to the right side of the demonic chi. Whoosh, whoosh. When they moved, the serpent Nether Guards and stone men Nether Guards came to life. At first, they were very clumsy, but their steps were nimble. They chased after them as fast as lightning. In the demonic chi, Su Fong and Xuanqin only had one thought in their minds: run for their lives. Otherwise, how could they be a match for so many Nether Guards? Boom, boom, boom. A shocking aura exploded from the demonic chi in front of them. The two of them looked over and saw the demonic chi light up. A large number of floating figures appeared. Most of them were Nether Guards that were releasing demonic chi. There were so many of them that they were almost uncountable. That ball of light appeared suddenly. In the blink of an eye, it was extinguished in the depths of the demonic chi. Bang! Su Fong and Xuanqin looked at each other. They were both shocked. It seemed that they were not the only ones who had encountered the Nether Guards. The other cultivators in the depths were also fighting with the Nether Guards. Buzz! At the same time, from the depths of the flickering demonic chi, a formless chi suddenly rushed toward Xuanqin. Her command medallion vibrated slightly. She immediately focused her gaze and nodded at Su Fong. A disciple of my sect is requesting for help. I have to rush over. You be careful. It's best if you escape. If you encounter Dragon Lord, it's best if you avoid him. Whoosh! It seemed that the lives of her fellow sect members were very important to Xuanqin. After leaving behind a sentence, she leaped into the demonic chi like a dragonfly. At this moment, the Nether Guards behind them were also chasing after them. In reality, Su Fong was more confident than anyone else in this place. He released his great perfection stage ability. It seemed that he continued to flee on his sword. His aura was even more mysterious. As long as there was an aura that did not belong to the mausoleum, these sleeping Nether Guards would be awakened. Therefore, if a cultivator had an extraordinary sealing technique, they would have a higher chance of survival in this place. Chapter 1141. The Faceless Nether Guards and stone snakes chased after him. Su Fong raised his speed to the extreme, especially hiding his aura and absorbing the underground palace's devil chi to cover his flesh membrane, merging with the underground palace's devil chi as one. Gradually, the nether guard slowed down. Su Fong also broke out in cold sweat. Once he fought with such powerful nether guards, the price he had to pay was huge. At this moment, he entered a demonic fog, surrounded by different monster statues. Fortunately, these statues were not nether guards. Su Fong hid behind a stone statue demon beast and swallowed pills. He was not in a hurry to find the exit of the third layer of the Yellow Spring underworld path. A thought entered the Crucible Transformation Array. Inside the Crucible Transformation Array, the heavenly demon bloodplate also appeared. Monk Shangde and the Vermilion Emperor waited in the array. Su Fong's young immortal appeared and ordered the monk, "Make the Ghost Owl's 5 freaks submit to me as soon as possible. If they don't want to, find a way to make them submit, the faster the better." The heavenly demon bloodplate emitted a supreme, divine power. The 5 shackled experts were sealed and appeared one by one. They were still struggling. Also, Su Fong suddenly looked at Monk Shangde. "You shouldn't be able to fuse with the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. Give me the bottle." "I can't fuse with the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. Even the Buddhist chi can't suppress the Devil Emperor's power." The monk obediently gave the bottle to Su Fong. After getting the bottle, he disappeared inside the Crucible Transformation Array. Monk Shangde probably didn't have any thoughts of coveting the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's treasure. Su Fong, who was hiding in the devil statue, took out the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. The bottle was dark yellow and had some golden devil runes protecting it. It was obvious that this bottle was a good item. Moreover, it was a top-grade Dao artifact. However, Su Fong still had to ask Luo. With his strength and cultivation, he couldn't even see through a high-grade Dao artifact, let alone a top-grade one. Luo's voice came from inside his body. "You know about the immortal piercing blade? This Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle is better than the immortal piercing blade. It's probably not an offensive magic treasure, but a spatial treasure. Overall, it has reached the peak of top-grade Dao artifacts and is about to rise to a higher level. The Yellow Spring Emperor's things are naturally good." Su Fong became even more excited after receiving Law's affirmation. But the best magic weapon is still on that fat monk. Law suddenly said something that made Su Fong's ears buzz. "It's that black cover called the Demon Wheel of Subduing Laws." Demon Subduing Wheel? Don't tell me. I wanted to ask you about it back then. That magic treasure is so powerful. Even the immortal piercing blade couldn't shake it in the slightest. It shouldn't be a top-grade Dao artifact. I've always been very puzzled. How can a broken cover be so powerful? Actually, I am very surprised as well. Unexpectedly, a great treasure of the Buddhist sects will be left here. Buddhist treasures. The Demon Subduing Wheel is an ancient Dao artifact. It's as powerful as the Xianjia Gate you mentioned. In my era, the Demon Subduing Wheel and the Xianjia Gate were already known to everyone. They were at the peak of a step. Only supreme divine artifacts could surpass them. It is so extraordinary, but I feel that it is slightly stronger than the immortal piercing blade. However, I have seen the Xianjia Gate before. That feeling was as deep as the heavens and earth. That's because the Demon Subduing Wheel you saw wasn't a real demon wheel. This ancient magic treasure looks like a big cauldron. It's different from other cauldrons, pill cauldrons, and crucible transformation cauldrons because it has a lid. That Demon Subduing Wheel and the cauldron's body. Of course, the Devil Subduing Wheel is one of the most important Buddhist treasures. It's rumored that it was used by a Buddhist expert to suppress the devil experts, refining their devil energy and purifying it into Buddhist chi. It's an existence that everyone in the devil race is afraid of. Never would I have thought that after such a long time, this treasure would see the light of day again. I really didn't expect that it would be in this immortal realm, and it was fused with by such a cultivator. Doesn't that mean I have to properly nurture this zombie? The Academy is slowly removing the filth. Stupid Pepper? Zheng? Mei Long Theta is in danger? Recuperating bell, peptide, column paper, ring, cien, neon law, suddenly praised. It's good that you can think this way. You didn't think of snatching the demon, subduing wheel from that fatty, and fusing with it yourself. Instead, Su Fong was a little stunned. I don't have that kind of energy. No matter how extraordinary the demon subduing wheel is, it's still a Dao treasure. It's about the same level as the Xinjia Gate, Yin Shao Thunder Sword, Dual Swords of Annihilation, and the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit. I already have the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit, and an even more powerful Origin Sacred Realm. I can't even control these two Dharma treasures, so why would I need that kind of Dao treasure? Haha, you should know that no Dao treasure or Dharma treasure has as much potential as your Purple Chi Dharma Spirit. Among all things, your Purple Chi Dharma Spirit is unique. It's not a spiritual treasure that can be refined just because a cultivator wants to. The Xinjia Gate, Demon Subduing Wheel, Yin Shao Thunder Sword, and Dual Swords of Annihilation are all items that can be refined. Do you know anything about the Dual Swords of Annihilation? An enemy appeared invisibly in Su Fong's mind as he relaxed slightly. Yin Sun Xin, Huiyin Shinrikyo's peerless genius. Using the incomplete map of Fairy Xuanxin and his own talent, he was able to fuse 10 Dao treasures together. I've heard of the Dual Swords of Annihilation. In my era, this Dharma treasure seemed to have just appeared. It's far inferior to the Xinjia Gate and the Demon Subduing Wheel. However, this Dharma treasure appeared later, so I'm not too sure. Luo was silent for a while, then said, Once in my era, there was an expert, a supreme expert, called the Tao Lord of Annihilation. This person created a Tao art of annihilation that was invincible. I heard that it was a peerless Tao art created from an incomplete mantra. His strength was shocking, and he was one of the true overlords of that era. No one knows how he disappeared later on, but the Dual Swords of Annihilation appeared later on. I guess the Dual Swords of Annihilation must be related to that Tao Lord of Annihilation. If that's the case, then you must be careful of the Dual Swords of Annihilation. I heard that although this Dharma treasure is only one, it's a set of sword letters. It's very strange. It's really powerful. I already feel a deep sense of danger. 10 great Tao artifacts. Yun Xiao's Thunder Sword. He had seen Huang Lingyao and Shui Wuying use it before. At that time, the two of them couldn't even use 1% of its power, but the sword momentum was already heaven-defying. Each of the Tao artifacts was famous in the immortal domain. It really lived up to its reputation. At this moment, Su Fong calmed down. Using the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor's devil chi in his blood, he immediately began to fuse with the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. When the essence blood and devil chi poured into the Great Emperor bottle, unexpectedly, the bottle wasn't as difficult to control as imagined. Instead, it swayed in front of Su Fong. The golden devil patterns felt like blooming flower buds, magnificent and magnificent. Su Fong also asked the monk. He had always wanted to refine the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle after getting it, but he couldn't control the devil chi inside. Moreover, it was a top-grade Tao artifact, and his strength didn't reach the level where he could absolutely control a top-grade Tao artifact. Since then, he hadn't really entered the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. This made Su Fong even more curious. However, he also thought that if the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle was really the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor's treasure, it couldn't have been casually scattered in the outside world. It must have been collected by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor and buried in this tomb. After about half a day, the Great Emperor bottle finally revealed a Xianguang. Devil Chi slowly spewed out and fused with the surrounding Devil Chi. When the young immortal entered the bottle, a large number of seals and devil arts constantly entered his mind or drilled into his body. The moment he entered the Great Emperor bottle, he felt a sense of dissonance. It was as if after cultivating the Yellow Spring Blood Sea, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle should be his. A large number of Devil Chi array formations and boundaries appeared inside. It was a huge Devil Chi world, 10 times bigger than the Void Dust Cauldron's world. Of course, the Void Dust Cauldron was a high-grade Tao artifact, while the Great Emperor bottle was a top-grade Tao artifact. The Great Emperor bottle should be a treasure refined by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. It has a never-before-seen Great Emperor's aura. Soon, he arrived at the depths of the vast bottle world. There were a large number of array formations inside the bottle that sealed all kinds of devil poisons. Although the bottle was a spatial treasure, these devil poisons and array formations could trap any elder-level expert. After all, only elders could cultivate a high-grade Tao artifact. For example, the monk could fuse with the law of vanquishing Devil Wheel's lid. Bai Tubing could also fuse with an ancient pearl. However, they couldn't perfectly activate a top-grade Tao artifact. The Great Emperor bottle was empty. It was as if this bottle had been refined not long ago and hadn't been used. If this bottle was a treasure used by a great emperor, there must be something inside. Moreover, this bottle didn't have an artifact spirit, which further proved this point. For a treasure to have an artifact spirit, the only way was if the refiner forced the artifact spirit to form the artifact spirit. The other way was to fuse the artifact spirit with the cultivator. After countless years of cultivation, the artifact spirit could be formed. Well, this bottle space is bigger than the Calder transformation. It's several times stronger and can move Big Goblin and other items here. Such a big space is enough to suppress a large number of Big Goblin and experts. This bottle is really good. Moreover, after the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle was activated, there was an invisible divine power that could affect the Devil Chi in this Devil Chi mausoleum. It seemed like the bottle had the Great Emperor's will or power. In that case, I'll let everyone enter the bottle to cultivate. The space is bigger and quieter. The Void Dust Cauldron is specifically used for cultivation. He immediately absorbed the bottle into his body. Together with the Calder transformation, he activated the two treasures at the same time and released his primordial spirit to all the Big Goblin and experts. Xian Guang shot out from the Calder transformation and was absorbed by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle. Green Feather King, Bai Ling, the Undying Turtle, the Wuling Goblin, and other Big Goblin could be seen in the Xian Guang. Mao Chong and other experts also flew in. After a while, only the Xian Huang Six Paths Pagoda, the Starry Daylight Sword, the Flaming Cloud Spirit Gourd, the Snake Spirit Immortal Swallowing Cauldron, the Great Monk Shangda, the Vermilion Emperor, the Ghost Dao's Five Freaks, and the Demonic Bloodplate were left. After the Void Dust Cauldron transformation, it was used for refining and cultivation. Su Fong also took out a spirit vein and inserted it into the Yellow Spring Great Emperor bottle to increase the spirit chi in the bottle and make it easier to activate the Great Emperor bottle. With his current strength, it would be a miracle if he could activate 1/5 of the Great Emperor bottle. Buzz! Boom! At this time, who knew that he would first sense a familiar aura? Then, with his perfect hearing, he heard a big explosion in the depths of the Devil Chi. It was another familiar aura. Who is it? It must be someone he knew, since he had fused with the Great Emperor bottle and escaped the detection of the Nether Guards. Su Fong wanted to continue searching for the Great Emperor's mausoleum. So, he flew towards the depths of the explosion. After a while, he saw two rays of light bursting out. It was two experts chasing after one person. When he saw it clearly, his face was filled with surprise. In his eyes, a young man in a red robe appeared. He was fighting with two experts of the Brahma meditation sect alone. Huiyin Shinrikyo's genius disciple, Yu Jingyan. Su Fong was attracted by the red-robed young man. As for the two disciples of the Brahma meditation sect, he didn't care because the red-robed young man was deeply engraved in his memory. Yu Jingyan. He had met him once before. This person had a special aura because he had a Tao body. Since Su Fong knew about this person, he had always remembered him. Moreover, a cultivator's memory was not like a mortal's. It was almost impossible to forget. In addition, this person had a Tao body. Chapter 1142. Tao body, transcendental desolate body. It was a special innate true body. It was different from the perfect body. The blood transformation true body and the Black Lotus true body were different. The Tao body was a body bestowed by the heavens. As for the other true bodies, the Great Circle fleshly body could only be obtained through arduous cultivation. The more trials and tribulations a cultivator went through, the better. So any Tao body, even the desolate body, was like a star in the sky. It could be imagined just how extraordinary Yu Jingyan was in Huiyin Shinrikyo. Yu Jingyan is too unlucky. Not only is he heavily injured, but he's also being chased by 2 experts from the Nirvana meditation sect. If this continues, he'll definitely die here. Su Fong watched for a moment and was about to leave. However, his eyes suddenly glowed with a bright light, as if they were burning with a shocking vigor. What do you want to do? As expected of a peerless expert, Luo was able to sense Su Fong's change in mood. Su Fong condensed his aura. Tao body, you said that my Yellow Springs blood sea has been cultivated to the peak, and with my ability, I could devour limitlessly. If I obtain Yu Jingyan's Tao body, wouldn't I be able to devour his Tao body's power? That might be the case in the future, but it's hard to say now. You'll only know if you try it. Luo didn't give an answer. I don't know what happened to Huang Lingyao back then, but she was able to cultivate a desolate body to a Tao body. If she can do it, why can't I? He completely hid his aura and focused on the battle ahead, especially Yu Jingyan's movements. Such a genius, such an important disciple, was actually training here alone. Furthermore, it was rumored that he hadn't been a special disciple for long, but he was already extremely powerful. Even so, he still couldn't compare to someone like Yin Sanshin. Yu Jingyan, we worked together to kill Xie Quanjuan. The treasure he obtained in the Phoenix Transformation Valley should have been taken out for everyone to share. But you want to take it for yourself? Serves you right for being attacked by your fellow sect members. We came here together for the great emperor's mausoleum, and we agreed to cooperate. But in the end, for that rare treasure, you ignored our agreement. Fine, since you killed your fellow sect members, the 2 of us will kill you. You asked for it. How greedy. The 2 masters, one from the front and one from the back, used powerful magic treasures. It was as if stars were exploding. Yu Jingyan could only use his flying sword to defend himself. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. There was a shocking wound on his back that went all the way to his stomach. It seemed it was a sword wound. It was this sword wound that had caused him such serious injuries. Yu Jingyan roared, I've already notified my sect's experts. Their auras are already very close. Don't even think about killing me or taking my treasure. There have long since been rumors about how powerful this treasure is. In the end, it was obtained by Xie Quanjuan, and now it's fallen into my hands. We won't give you that chance. The 2 experts attacked even more fiercely. As for Yu Jingyan, he always had a way to seize the initiative. Whenever the 2 experts attacked, he would always be able to react first. Furthermore, he wasn't restricted by the devilish chi within the devilish mist. Using these 2 advantages, he was able to continue fighting with the 2 experts in his heavily injured state. If it were any other special disciple, they would have long since died. Once the Huiyin Shinrikyo's experts come to save Yu Jingyan, I won't be able to get the Tao body. But those 2 Nirvana Meditation Gates disciples are extremely powerful. I don't have any confidence in being able to quickly take Yu Jingyan away from them. Furthermore, Yu Jingyan isn't a minor character. I can't take him away just because I want to. Hearing their conversation, Su Fong felt very anxious. This was his best chance. If he missed it and Yu Jingyan returned to the Huiyin Shinrikyo, he would have no chance. But at this time, with his strength, it wasn't impossible for him to deal with 3 special disciples at the same time. It was just that he couldn't do it in a short time. He had the monk Shangda, but just the 2 of them couldn't suppress the 3 of them. Unfortunately, the Ghost Path's 5 freaks still hadn't submitted to him. If they did, then things would be much easier. Buzz, amidst his conflict, his great perfection ability suddenly sensed an aura. It flickered faintly and then suddenly disappeared. What was going on? Was there an outsider fighting, or was there a cultivator suddenly passing by? He immediately used the life, shrinking art along with his great perfection ability. Buzz. He didn't expect a red-robed man to appear in his destiny rune. This person had almost silently passed through the devil mist. If it weren't for the devil mist corrosion, even his great perfection ability wouldn't have been able to sense him. In the blink of an eye, this figure clearly condensed in his Tao rune. It was the number one disciple of the Huiyin Shinrikyo, Yin Sunshin. Yin Sunshin. It was actually him. Su Fong shuddered. This person was the number one disciple of the Huiyin Shinrikyo. How powerful was he? He's here. The helper that Yu Jingyan invited is probably Yin Sunshin. That's right, Yu Jingyan has a Tao body. Huiyin Shinrikyo is the most important person. It's not surprising that Yin Sunshin came alone to save him. He gritted his teeth. He was really unwilling. It would be fine if it was someone else, but it turned out to be Yin Sunshin. 1 breath later, 3 breaths later. With his great perfection vision, Su Fong witnessed how amazing Yin Sunshin's speed was. The other 3 didn't have the great perfection ability. Therefore, he took a step into the demonic fog in front of him and unleashed another wave of primordial spirit attack. It was like a wave that suddenly attacked from behind. It suddenly hit the 2 experts of the Brahma meditation sect. Then, he pressed down with his hand, and the 2 special disciples were immediately swallowed by the sword chi. It was just one move. Yin Sunshin used his powerful primordial spirit, amazing strength, and speed to crush the 2 experts. On the other side, Yu Jingyan, who was spurting blood in the devil mist, was overjoyed. He stared at the 2 experts covered by sword chi with murderous intent and walked toward Yin Sunshin. Senior, you've come just in time. Yin Sunshin raised his eyebrows and released a burning lava flame at the same time as Yu Jingyan, covering the explosive sword chi. They wanted the 2 disciples of the Brahma meditation sect to die here. Now that he had control of the situation, Yin Sunshin slowly said, "You asked for help from your fellow disciples, and I'm one of the people in charge of this trip to the tomb. The other elders and higher-ups are in charge of other things. When I heard that something happened to you, I immediately rushed over. Are you okay?" Yu Jingyan tried to suppress his breathing. I was plotted against by Senior Lu Qi originally. The 4 of us came here to find the great emperor's tomb together. Who would have thought that Senior Brother would cooperate with these 2 and launch a sneak attack? That's why I was seriously injured. Otherwise, these 2 wouldn't have been able to do anything to me. Lu Qi is dead? Yin Sunshin asked again. He plotted against me, but he was unlucky and was poisoned by the devil poison. These 2 were worried that he would steal the treasure in my hands, so he died under their swords. Senior, you have to help me. Lu Qi deserved to die. It has nothing to do with me. After this matter with the great emperor is over, I will respect you as my senior. You have a Tao body, and your future achievements will be above mine. You are valued by the sect, and I will respect you in the future. Isn't this a waste of talent? Senior, what are you talking about? I can't repay you for saving my life this time. In the future, I will be on your side in the sect. We'll talk about this later. If these 2 are killed now, and they spread the news about you and Lu Qi, it will affect your future. Lu Qi is also a special disciple and has a strong background. If he dies just like that, even the elders will have to give an explanation. Yin Sunshin controlled the flames of the burning lava. After speaking to Yu Jingyan, he suddenly waved his hand, and an ancient sword-shaped flame appeared on his right arm. The burning lava was over 100 meters long, but under the control of his extraordinary burning sword intent, it slowly rolled over. Yin Sunshin's strength was just that domineering. Even in this mausoleum's devilish chi world, he was still able to control such divine abilities. He didn't care about the shackles of the devilish chi. Even Yu Jingyan saw a wrinkle at the corner of his eye. Yin Sunshin is so strong. In the distance, Su Fong also swallowed his saliva. If you want to kill me, then I have no reason to let you live. Under the control of the Flame Immortal's heart, it was possible to see the 2 experts from the Brahma meditation sect struggling to free themselves. Despair and terror filled their hearts as they tried to flee from the Flame Immortal's heart's divine might. However, the burning power of the Flame Immortal's heart instantly reduced their true energy to ash. Yu Jingyan suddenly took out a peak top-grade flying sword, and it was a fire tribute immortal sword. When he poured his true chi into it and walked step by step toward the burning lava, the fire attribute immortal sword nearly melted. His sword intent burned even more fiercely. Yu Jingyan's supreme fire attribute divine might allowed him to pass by Yin Sunshin. Yin Senshin's lips curled up, and he snorted. Die! The burning immortal sword exuded a supreme Tao treasure and a fire elemental burning sword aura. At this moment, Yu Jingyan's entire body was engulfed in flames. This scene was extremely similar to Su Feng's state when he used his fire attribute divine ability. In the distance, Su Feng's eyes trembled. His Tao body is truly terrifying. Yu Jingyan's fire attribute abilities are on par with mine. His Tao body is extraordinary. It wasn't a coincidence that he was able to become a key disciple of the Huayan Shinrikyo. When ordinary people used fire attribute divine abilities, their bodies wouldn't change. Even Yin Sunshin couldn't reach Yu Jingyan's level. The difference between a genius and a mortal was like the difference between an ant and an elephant. Even Su Feng, who had the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, his innate divine might, the illusory fire cloud, and the two deviant flame seeds, felt that Yu Jingyan had turned into a lava giant. Yu Jingyan used his fire god art. The lava sword force from the flying sword caused the surrounding demonic qi to disperse again. Yin Xinshin beside him. He was also paying attention to Yu Jingyan at this moment. This was because Yu Jingyan's fire elemental divine might was above the surrounding demonic qi. A supreme will controlled by the great Tao radiated from this fire elemental disciple. It was like the sun rising from the east, becoming the most dazzling divine light in the world. Unexpectedly, Yin Senshin's left palm suddenly opened silently. A sword-like light seemed to have a living sword spirit that swam around his palm. He glanced at the fire attribute immortal qi that was walking toward the two trapped masters. From his angle, he just happened to see Yu Jingyan's fire attribute divine might. The fire attribute shadow that was almost 5 feet tall made Yin Sunshin flash with hostility. Su Feng also noticed the change in her expression. At the same time, Su Feng's skin also felt as though it was frozen. His perfect circle ability and all his attention were focused on Yin Xinshin at this moment. What did you see? The world was so quiet that Su Feng could only hear his own breathing, Yin Senshin's eyes changing, and the sound of flames burning around Yu Jingyan. Law suddenly asked in the depths of his body. Killing intent. Ambition. Spirit. Su Feng blurted out. Chapter 1143. With every word he said, his perfect eyes could still be attracted by Yin Senshin's aura. Although this was the underground palace of the Demon Emperor's mausoleum, where the demonic qi covered the sky and could suppress Yu Jingyan's fire ability, it could not swallow Yin Senshin's ambitious gaze. His ambition shone from the corner of his eyes, like the silver moon passing through the ice. You saw it, you saw it. In the blood jade, Luo also stared at the outside. You saw a genius who would do anything to become an emperor. I did see it, Luo. I thought that I had done well enough. With a heart of reverence for the great world, I continued to work hard to surmount one peak after another. But right now, Yin Xinshin gave me the feeling that even if his family members were in front of him, he would still eliminate them. A great man must be ruthless. This is the heart of the strong. Since ancient times, those who have achieved great things have often spent their lives making one choice after another. Each choice requires great courage and wisdom. Cultivators who have never made a choice will never be able to become a peerless expert. Only when the rivers are agitated can they become even more vast. The greater your heart, the more limitless your Tao. Often, the people you met in the past only passed on their cultivation experiences to you. Now, open your eyes and take a good look. After Luo finished speaking, Su Feng's attention was still focused on Yin Sunshin. His left hand suddenly sped up. Whoosh! His left hand swept past Yu Jingyan's back. In an instant, a sword qi silently pierced through the flames of the burning magma giant. Then blood spurted out. Yu Jingyan, who had turned into a flame state, had his head pierced through by the sword qi and came out from between his eyebrows. Instantly, Yu Jingyan's burning state began to disappear. From his red head, ordinary flesh, head, and face began to condense. Then from a neck down, it began to condense into a living body. The power of the flame disappeared. The two experts in front of him, who were suppressed by the magma flames, could not react at this moment. They were originally struggling, but now they were helpless and hopeless like starving beggars. Master, aren't you afraid that the sect will settle the score with you? Why did you do it next time? The sword chi controlled Yu Jingyan. The power of the sword chi made it impossible for him to condense his fire chi. Blood flowed out of his orifices, especially his eyes, which made him stare with bloodshot eyes. He struggled to turn around. Why do I want to kill you? Yin Senshin's surroundings surged with even more sword will. Even the demonic aura exploded when it came into contact with the sword aura. When have you ever seen two trees of the same height and sturdy in a forest? When have you ever seen two majestic mountains of the same height? Have you ever seen a forest with two leaders? But how long has it been since I became a special disciple? I'm far inferior to you. Whether it's cultivation, strength, or influence in the celestial world, I'm not even a tenth of yours. Yu Jingyan gave up on struggling. But you have a Dao body, you are talented, and you have the attention of the upper echelons of the sect. Just like that, as my senior apprentice brother, you want to kill me even though we have no enmity between us. Your growth rate is shocking. I'm the same age as you, but I haven't reached your height. Why did I have to watch a tumor slowly grow in front of me? Why did I have to watch a tumor slowly grow in front of me and threaten me in the future? In the end, I might even be destroyed by this tumor. Yin Xin, you're vicious and merciless. I admit defeat. Yu Jingyan, won't beg you. Even if I beg you, you won't spare my life. In this life, I will also aim to become a leader, an emperor. I will also secretly surpass you, surpass your edge. You're right. Once I make up my mind to do something, I'll definitely accomplish it. If I want to kill someone, I'll definitely take their head. You won't have a chance. Yin Senshin didn't want to waste any more of his energy. He slowly raised his left hand, and his fingers transformed into eagle claws. Blinding sword will shot out. You can only blame your bad karmic luck for giving me such an opportunity in this tomb. It's not me who wants to kill you, but your karmic luck. Yin Senshin, Yu Jingyan, who was suddenly controlled by the sword energy, let out a furious roar. His hands suddenly clenched into fists, and a mysterious light surged out from his body, creating a shockwave. Bang! It was unknown how Yu Jingyan had managed to resist the Flame Immortal's heart's release of such a strange divine power. The Flame Immortal's heart was unable to react in time and was struck in the chest like a whip, sending him flying. There will be no more opportunities if you miss them. Su Fong suddenly disappeared from where he stood. He was like a phantom walking in the night. When Yu Jingyan's aura had sent Yin Senshin flying, he quickly and noiselessly swept towards the devil chi in front of him. Pa! Pa! Yin Senshin continuously retreated. Apart from shock, he was also filled with killing intent. This aura was actually breaking his defenses. Yes, still under the influence of this aura, Yin Senshin wouldn't let Yu Jingyan escape. But just as he locked onto Yu Jingyan, a black figure passed through the devil chi and grabbed the motionless Yu Jingyan. Whoosh! Like a ball of black smoke, it wrapped around Yu Jingyan and escaped into the devil chi. Yu Jingyan, you've also found reinforcements. Ha, what a pity. Yu Jingyan, you think I'm trying to kill you? That's my Dao of destruction. It's turned into sword chi. Even if you have a Dao body, you won't be able to control it. Yin Senshin forcefully jumped up and suddenly pointed at the black figure. Whoosh! Boom! An invisible power passed through the devil chi. The black figure that was about to disappear suddenly exploded into a bloody mist. Haha, where do you think you're going? Yin Senshin stood with his hands behind his back. Just as he was about to charge out, he suddenly saw the two cultivators suppressed by the devil chi. They were still alive. I have destruction. Yin Senshin clasped his hands together, and a divine power suddenly exploded from his eyes. A surge of sword intent swept into the devil chi. You'll die a horrible death. A large amount of bloody mist suddenly spewed out from the burning devil chi. Yin Sun Shin waved his hand, and the flames disappeared among the devil chi. Not a single bone was left. Umph. Only the weak can't struggle. Yin Sun Shin turned into a red aura and flashed towards the devil chi. In another devil chi, Yu Jingyan. Su Fong was covered in blood. Even the corner of his mouth was bleeding. As for Yu Jingyan, he was still alive. However, his head suddenly exploded, and he became a headless body. Su Fong would not let go of even a corpse. He looked behind him, and a red figure appeared in his eyes. Yin Sun Shin is so powerful. I used my strongest defense and the life-shrinking art to strip the sword chi from Yu Jingyan's head so that Yin Sun Shin would not be able to control the sword chi. However, I still couldn't do it. This person's strength is too terrifying. His sword chi is especially sharp. Got it. Less than 2 miles away. Su Fong's speed had already reached the limit. He had also used the feather fan and the blood hell wolf smoke to increase his speed to the limit. However, Yin Sun Shin and Su Fong were twice as fast as him. Under the perception of the great perfection, Yin Sun Shin had turned into a sword and chased after him. His speed had increased by a lot. It was unrealistic to fight with Yin Sun Shin. This person had a heaven-defying treasure, the twin swords of destruction. Suddenly, something appeared in front of him. It was locked on by the great perfection ability. He immediately spat out a breath of life, and it passed through the devil chi like an arrow. When he also passed through the devil chi, there were faceless nether guards in front of him. They were still in the state of stone, but some of them had already awakened and locked onto Su Fong. Come in. Su Fong hurriedly controlled his divine power and pulled Yu Jingyan's corpse into the yellow spring Great Emperor bottle. Run. I also saw his method just now. I didn't expect Huiyin Shinrikyo to have such an expert. Nowadays, the young people are more abnormal than the last. The emperor was not anxious, but the eunuch was. The voice of Shangda's soul came from inside the crucible transformation. Whoosh! A large number of nether guards in front of him revived. There were at least 100 nether guards in the devil chi. Once they were revived, even Yin Sun Shin would not be able to resist. I know the tomb very well. Yin Sun Shin, as long as these nether guards stop you, you can't do anything to me. Su Fong had already passed by a few nether guards. And he also thought that Yin Sun Shin was too ordinary. This person had a pair of divine powers and was almost a few feet behind Su Fong. He suddenly realized something and put his hands together. He suddenly used his fingers and middle fingers to put them together. Suddenly, 2 rays of sword light appeared between his eyebrows. The 2 rays of sword light strangely entwined together. Chi! His hands suddenly separated. The sword light entwined between his eyebrows turned into a beast and pierced through the air. Whoosh! Dozens of meters in front of the devil chi, Su Fong suddenly felt danger coming from behind. He grabbed downward with both hands and sucked 2 resurrecting nether guards into the void and threw them behind him. Chi! Chi! Strangely, the 2 resurrected nether guards seemed to have met with some invisible resistance. Then, a ray of sword light appeared and cut through one of the nether guards' chest and the other's neck at almost the same time. At first, it was very fast, but in a breath's time, it only penetrated the 2 nether guards. So strong. In a void a few feet behind him, Su Fong thought that he could use the nether guards to block the invisible attack. But when he saw this scene, he hesitated. In an instant, the sword attack hit his chest. Then, as if gravity had disappeared, he fell toward the awakened nether guards. First, he revived some nether guards and flew into the air to find his target. Several nether guards surrounded Su Fong. Even an elder can't dodge my sword attack using the twin swords of annihilation. 2 breaths later, a red aura came and knocked away a floating nether guard. But in front of him, several nether guards began to notice the red figure. Yin Sun Shin. He grabbed 2 invisible rays of sword light and looked at Su Fong sharply. Wearing a mask and evil aura. When did Yu Jingyan make friends with such a crooked person? What a pity. Yu Jingyan, if you die like this, the Huiyin Shinrikyo will be mine. In fact, the leader's position will always be mine, Yin Sunshin. Masked cultivator, you can't escape either. Crack! Boom! Boom! Yin Shinshin's hands suddenly pierced out with sword chi. Then, she quickly waved her hands. A sword force broke through the nether guards and knocked them away. What a powerful sword attack. Whoosh. Where is he? Why is he an ogre? After knocking away the nether guards with his powerful sword attack, Yin Shinshin flashed to the surface and saw the nether guards tearing the corpse apart. But when he looked, it was not a human corpse, but an ogre's corpse. It didn't matter if the nether guards were human or ogre. As long as there was life, they would destroy it. Yin Sunshin looked around. His eyes were filled with surging sword intent. He's gone? How is it possible that no cultivator has disappeared from this place? Yin Sunshin was so angry that he could only retreat. That was because the revived stone serpents were staring at him coldly. The surrounding nether guards had also mostly been revived. Let's see where you can run to, masked cultivator. Even if this person really is Yu Jingnian's helper, as long as I report this to the sect and tell them a different story, who would believe a corrupt cultivator's words? Wait, masked cultivator. Yin Xian Xian suddenly had a look of astonishment as she formed a seal. Chapter 1144. As soon as the seal was formed, a lifelike shadow of Gu Huajun's immortal soul condensed from the profound light in his palms. Young master, what is it? Gu Huajun was surprised. Yin Sunshin raised his eyebrows. You said that the person who stopped you from killing Xuanxin was a masked cultivator with a white mask with some blood runes on it, right? That's him. I can't see through his cultivation base. He looks powerful, but he just gives off a mysterious feeling. What a coincidence. I ran into him just now, but he escaped. If I knew he was the one who saved Xuanxin, I wouldn't have given him any chance. Then he's already here. Young master, you don't have to worry about that. He'll definitely go look for the Emperor's treasury. Young Master Long is also looking for him. He won't be able to escape from under our noses. Furthermore, the underground palace is easy to enter, but it's harder to leave. The only way to escape is to destroy the palace from the outside. Even if he grows wings, he won't be able to escape. Find someone to secretly contact young Master Long. Let him know that the masked cultivator is also in the tomb. With young Master Long's temper, he won't let him off. There's something I don't understand. Under normal circumstances, young Master Long would definitely kill that cultivator. But don't ask about it. Just focus on finding clues to the Emperor's treasury. If I find anything, I'll give you a share of the treasures. Yes. Gu Huajun, who was between his palms, nodded for a moment and then disappeared. What a masked cultivator. I know all the powerful figures in these great worlds. That's especially true of young Lord Long. However, this guy just popped up out of nowhere. He has no bottom line. He wears a mask to hide his identity, just like a rat. But in this underground palace, even a rat will die here. Consider yourself lucky. A large number of nether guards charged at him. The gluttonous devil's corpse had already been completely destroyed by the nether guards. Even if there was blood, it had been corroded by the devilish chi. Yin Shinshin swept his gaze over the surroundings, unwilling to give up. But in the end, he still turned and left. Master, he's gone. That person disappeared for a moment. There were some shattered rocks near the nether guard. Under the layer of rubble, Wuling Goblin was in his strongest state, merging his power with the layer of rubble. In addition, Su Fong had used the divine life shrinking technique in his body. In this most dangerous place, he had used this method to save his life right under Yin Senshin's nose. Wait a moment. Even if someone like him leaves, he'll still be spying on us from the shadows. Su Fong sat cross-legged. Although he had stopped the bleeding, the sword wound on his chest was too ghastly. A part of his flesh had been torn open, and he felt as if he had almost been cut off entirely. This sword, not only was the Flame Immortal's heart powerful, but it also had the intention to kill him. This was his all-out attack. If it wasn't for the nether guards, Su Fong's body was also cut in two. In the end, they had to use the corpse of a gluttonous demon that Gue had devoured to attract the nether guards and create chaos. The wait lasted for 2 hours. The surrounding nether guards quieted down, and a portion of them left. Wuling Goblin quietly crawled out from the rubble and left the demonic fog along the ground. In a demonic fog space, it found a place full of shattered rocks. Su Fong then appeared and swallowed the pills. Yin Senshin's sword not only injured his flesh, but the sword intent contained in the sword was like internal strength. When it entered his body, it severely injured his body. He felt as if his heart, liver, spleen, and lungs were all shattered. He was thoroughly injured, almost severely. Even if I swallow pills, I won't be able to recover quickly. The corpse of the gluttonous demon has also been eaten by Gue Gue. There are only 3 giant gluttonous demons left. I can't kill them. Oh right, Yu Jingyin's corpse. This person's cultivation and strength are higher than mine. I can swallow his body. Not only can I recover a little, but I can also swallow the power of the Tao body. Time was tight. After the Wuling goblin swallowed him, he immediately summoned the Crucible Transformation Sword and entered it. This way, no expert would be able to find him in the Underground Palace world. In the Crucible Transformation world, Bai Ling, Green Feather Monarch, and the other big goblin flew out from the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's bottle. They were all concerned about Su Fong. Seeing his serious injuries, they were helpless and angry. However, they were helpless. Su Fong told everyone not to worry. After chatting for a while, he activated the array formation. He displayed the Yellow Spring Blood Sea in the array formation. He was like a real giant of the Devil Tao, cultivating a peerless devil technique. What kind of technique is that? Not far away, in another array formation, Monk Shangde and Vermilion Emperor were torturing the Ghost Dao's 5 freaks. The 5 freaks didn't look like humans anymore, but they didn't open their mouths to submit. Bring the 5 freaks over. Su Fong's primordial spirit's voice swept over. The 2 experts released their aura and dragged the badly mutilated 5 freaks into the array formation. When they arrived at Su Fong's array formation, not only did Monk Shangde feel uneasy, the Ghost Dao's 5 freaks also changed their expressions. You 5 freaks still don't submit. Don't blame me for being ruthless. I will let you see my methods. If you still don't agree, this will be your end. He didn't have time to waste on these people. It wasn't worth it, and it wasn't necessary. Under the Yellow Spring Blood Sea state, Su Fong continuously swallowed high-grade elixirs in front of everyone. Then, with a wave of his hand, a corpse appeared in the Blood Sea. It was Yu Jingyin's headless body. What was he trying to do? This was probably a problem that Monk Shangde and the Ghost Dao's 5 freaks appeared at the same time. Chi. Unexpectedly, that headless body fell into the Blood Sea under Su Fong's consciousness. The Blood Sea boiled and burned with the flame of life. Everyone could only see. The headless body floated in the Blood Sea and was burned by the Bloodstone again and again. That headless body's skin began to peel off layer by layer, as if it was scalded by boiling water, from the arms to the neck. Moreover, the 5 fingers of the corpse gradually melted like ice and turned into drops of blood water. They were instantly devoured by the surging Blood Sea below. After devouring, the surrounding blood-colored flames became even more terrifying. Just like that, a corpse was slowly corroded and devoured by the Yellow Springs Blood Sea that Su Fong controlled. They were all exceptional experts. Of course, they knew what Su Fong was doing. They also saw that the corpse's energy was completely absorbed by Su Fong after it melted. Only Vermilion Emperor was proud. He turned into his human form and shouted like thunder, "Master is invincible." Ha! Ghost Dao's 5 freaks. Su Fong, who was condensed from the Blood Sea, suddenly shot out a bright light that penetrated the dark clouds. It's your choice to live or die. If you live, you can live well and serve me. I know that I'm not an immortal emperor, nor an expert from a major force. I don't have a backer, but I have infinite determination. With this, I believe that I can surpass anyone. Even if you don't choose to submit, I will still refine you alive. Vermilion Emperor. After saying that, the Ghost Dao's 5 freaks were not allowed to react. Behind him, the Vermilion Emperor suddenly waved his arm vigorously. While the big monk was dumbfounded, the sealed 5 freaks flew toward Su Fong's formation like 5 delicious dishes. Even the monk had goosebumps all over his body. However, Su Fong did not look at the ghost Dao's 5 freaks again. Seeing that they were about to enter the formation, the 5 freaks suddenly stopped hesitating. Like mice that saw a cat, they shivered and cowed out. We submit. Master, we submit. We don't want to die. Ah, when the 5 freaks touched the formation, they were so scared that they almost fainted. In their despair, they saw Su Fong, who was in a state of blood, so far away. One by one, they moaned weakly. They were almost refined to death by Su Fong. Su Fong shouted and condensed a familiar supreme power. It turned into 5 seal seeds and entered the 5 freaks' bodies. After taking control of them, Su Fong was still indifferent. The 5 of you are very powerful when you join forces. Are you cultivating some kind of special technique? One of them quickly replied, Master, when we were young, we 3 brothers accidentally found an ancient technique in a wasteland. It is called the Grand Fusion Divine Technique. This technique is very magical. As long as we cultivate it at the same time, we can form hand seals and activate an amazing power together. For example, the 5 of us are not as strong as the monk Shangda. When we use the Grand Fusion Divine Technique, our strength increases by 5 times. We can fight head-on with the monk Shangda. No expert can easily suppress us. The Grand Fusion Divine Technique is very good. I will give you a mission. This is the soul-chasing devil sword. Su Fong fiercely waved his hand. A supreme-grade sword light suddenly pierced out and arrived in front of the ghost Dao's 5 freaks. A supreme-grade Dao artifact. The 5 freaks were shocked. This is a supreme-grade Dao artifact that was cultivated by an ancient devil Dao expert. The 5 of you can fuse with it while letting the experts under you cultivate the Grand Fusion Divine Technique. This way, the 5 of you can activate the Grand Fusion Divine Technique together. The soul-chasing devil sword is a supreme-grade Dao artifact that the 5 of you once feared can use such a Dao artifact. Together with everyone's divine abilities, you can definitely suppress them. Yes, Master. A supreme-grade Dao artifact, the 5 freaks thought about how they were suppressed and unable to resist. Moreover, they obtained a supreme-grade Dao artifact as soon as they arrived. At this time, Su Fong called out the 18 experts who used to cultivate the emotionless sword spy. They just happened to lose the emotionless sword spy. Now, they could cultivate the Grand Fusion Divine Technique together with the 5 freaks. With this technique, it was equivalent to them having the emotionless sword spy again. Grand Fusion Divine Technique. Su Fong asked the monk and the Vermilion Emperor to return to the side to cultivate. He gave them all the resources. The most important thing was to slowly recover and absorb Yu Jingyan's Dao body. However, he secretly began to communicate with Law. Law's surprised voice sounded. From what you said, this Grand Fusion Divine Technique is a treasure that you have picked up. It should be an ancient artifact because there were many peerless existences in the ancient times. However, this technique is actually not unfamiliar to you. It's not very useful. Oh, why did he say that? Didn't you notice that the Grand Fusion Divine Technique condenses everyone's strength to attack? Isn't it the same as your natal divine might? Yes, that's true. In the end, the Grand Fusion Divine Technique has the same effect as your natal divine might. Therefore, as long as these people are under your control, when you activate your natal magic treasure, their strength and divine might can be added to your body. Therefore, the Grand Fusion Divine Technique is a peerless technique for most cultivators. However, for some capable people, such as those who control their natal magic treasure, the advantage is not too obvious. I see. The important thing is that you have to absorb the Dao body strength now. If you want to absorb the Dao body with your current realm, you probably won't be able to absorb even 1/10 of its strength. Fortunately, you are a great perfection cultivator, and you also have the Black Lotus True Body and the Blood Transformation True Body. I suggest that from now on, when you devour the Dao body, you push your physical body's strength to the extreme and absorb it in your strongest state. The result may be much better this way. Chapter 1145. Elder Su Fong decisively denied. Look at my heart. It will take at least a few decades to heal with elixirs and spiritual items. For me, I need the essence of life to recover. Although the power of the Black Lotus real body and Taming Dragon, which can produce life, is still not as fast as directly swallowing the life force of the outside world. On the other hand, you think that Yin Sinxin, Long Xiaojun, and the demons from the devil world are too difficult to deal with. You have to recover quickly and get the great Emperor's treasure. There can't be any mistakes. Before Su Fong finished, Law said these words. As expected of Law, all he could think of was Su Fong's current predicament. Law did not say anything else. There was no more movement around. Of course, there is only the sound of the monk Shangde recovering, the 5 ghosts, and the 18 masters cultivating. They have not recovered from their injuries. The 5 ghosts are also seriously injured, and the monk has only recovered for a short time. I have to find the life force to help them recover. Only then can they help me deal with strong enemies. I believe that as long as I borrow everyone's strength, we can fight against opponents with peerless Taoist artifacts. No longer distracted. Blood transformation real body. Black Lotus real body. Great perfection physical body. At this moment, they all exploded under the underworld blood sea state. In an instant, the chi of a nightmare and a large number of Black Lotus blood threads emerged from the blood water. The blood water swept like a raging wave hitting the shore. In the surging process, the entire underworld blood sea burned with a flame of life that had never been so shocking before. In this flame, Yu Jingnian's body melted little by little. Yu Jingnian's body, techniques, vital energy, everything from this moment on became Su Fong's. There was no other way. He could only do as Law said and try his best to absorb Yu Jingnian's ability. Not only could he recover, but he also had the ability of the Taoist body. The speed of absorption was amazing. After all aspects had reached the peak. This was also the first time Su Fong used this state to absorb a corpse with the underworld blood sea. Yu Jingnian's body had turned into blood and bones, and half of his body was swallowed by the blood water. Days passed. It was obvious that there was only a little bit of blood and bones left. Su Fong began to open his eyes. He knew that a month had passed, and he could not delay any longer. Fortunately, after devouring with all his strength, the last bit of the corpse finally turned into a blood-colored liquid and merged with his blood. For the Yellow Springs blood sea to have such a change, it's all thanks to the Frost soul blood fetus that I snatched from the Devil Realm's gluttonous demon. That's truly a miraculous treasure for cultivating the physical body. Yu Jingyan disappeared, leaving only a few items behind. As he clasped his hands together, the wildly burning flames of life gradually calmed down. Su Fong was still in the Yellow Springs blood sea state, still devouring pills. At this moment, he gradually released the power of the Great Perfection stage. Inadvertently, Su Fong could see the Vermilion Emperor, the Great Monk Shangde, and the other experts clearly from different directions. He could even hear the flow of their Jinqi and their heartbeats clearly. As for all the array formations within the Crucible transformation space, with just a single sweep of his mind, he could clearly see every corner of it. Then, he activated the Black Lotus True Body. Unexpectedly, the Black Lotus blood threads had been born from the blood water for many years. They were so densely packed that it was as if a blood-colored head had grown out of the blood water. The scene was strange and shocking. At this moment, Su Fong was like a complete monster. Whoosh! Suddenly, he disappeared from the array formations and left the Crucible transformation space. He also flew out of the Wuling Goblin's body, the latter disappearing into his palm. Returning to the demonic mist space, before he could activate his Great Perfection stage ability, he felt the power of countless ancient shackles oppressing him. However, the defense automatically formed to resist the surrounding demonic chi. After Su Fong released his Great Perfection stage ability, he could clearly see everything within 10 miles. The power of the mausoleum shackles did not affect him much. Amazing. It was shocking. Compared to his previous Great Circle abilities, this was at least 10 times more powerful. Not only could he see further and hear more clearly, but his great circle abilities also allowed him to adapt to the surrounding environment. Furthermore, the power of the devil energy didn't allow him to unleash divine abilities on his own. He then activated the demonic chi in his body, turning his body into a demonic chi state. The surrounding demonic chi no longer took the initiative to shackle him. It seemed that Su Fong had integrated with the mausoleum. The Tao body is amazing. Its ability is amazing. I cultivated the yellow spring blood sea and obtained the inheritance of 2 great ancient demonic wills. When I came to this mausoleum, I would be shackled. But now that I have fused with the Tao body and activated the demonic chi, this mausoleum has no shackles on me. No wonder Huang Lingyao became a Tao body. With the 10 great Tao artifacts, Cloud Sky, Thunder Sword, and 2 great abilities, she could be so close to the heavenly Tao immortal world. Dragon Lord and Immortal Emperor Tian Ong can naturally see her future potential. My external injuries have healed, but some of my internal injuries haven't healed yet. It's been a month. By now, most of those weak cultivators should have been killed by the strong ones. Those who can survive on the 3rd level of the Yellow Springs underworld are all true experts. In an instant, after releasing his great perfection stage ability, Su Fong also flew forward. He also had to hurry up and enter the 4th level of the Great Emperor's space. In fact, since everyone entered the 1st level of the mausoleum, the layout, energy, and array of the entire Great Emperor's underground mausoleum had changed. It was no longer as strong as before. In the end, there would be a power that could break the mausoleum from the outside. The possibility of this happening was too high. With a range of 5 kilometers, Su Fong could almost capture any movement of the Nether Guards. What a demonic Tao master! After flying for a short distance, he caught sight of a battle between a demonic chi and a Nether Guard a few miles away. With a single glance, he saw a greater demonic chi being suppressed by a few stone snakes. There was no chance for him to survive. However, Su Fong needed the power of life. This big goblin was very powerful, even more powerful than the average elder. It would be a pity if it was destroyed by the stone snakes. He increased his speed. His speed was now very shocking. He was not shackled by the demonic aura mausoleum and could naturally fly in a normal environment. In less than 5 breaths, he arrived in front of the exploding demonic aura. At this time, the big goblin's arms, legs, and almost its head were twisted a few times. It could be seen how powerful the stone snakes were. In an instant, they were full of life. A few stone snakes immediately sensed Su Fong and gave up on the big goblin's corpse that was about to be crushed into a meat patty. They flew towards Su Fong. However, when they attacked, Su Fong's aura disappeared. He cleverly bypassed the stone snakes and arrived above the big goblin's corpse. He absorbed the corpse into his crucible transformation and activated it to refine the power of life. He also let the monk and the ghost Dao's 5 freaks prepare to absorb the essence. Of course, he would also secretly absorb the essence to heal his injuries. In a flash, he entered deeper into the demonic fog. Along the way, he saw a large number of corpses. Most of them were corroded by the demonic aura and did not have a trace of chi or life. From the materials and flying swords left behind by the corpses, it was not hard to tell that they were not only from the Yuan Fortune Great World and the Immortal Ao Great World, but also from the Sky-Bearing Great World and the Great Heaven Immortal World, especially the Sky-Bearing Great World and the Great Heaven Immortal World. Su Fong had seen these immortals from the lower realms when he was in a small world. It was a pity that they had all died after crossing the ocean to the desolate lake, Astral World. There were also many corpses of the experts of the 4 major forces. There were too many of them. The aura of the constellation of 9 heavens was emitted from many of the corpses. Master, Su Fong wanted to know the situation of the 4 major forces. Hence, he sensed with Immortal Changgu. The latter immediately transmitted his primordial spirit from the depths of the underground palace. The experts of the 4 major forces are gathered around the underworld Tao staircase at the end of the underground palace. They are fighting with the experts of the other forces. The experts of the demon world are very powerful. They all want to kill their way into the depths of the underworld Tao staircase. I heard that the Yellow Springs Demon Emperor's tomb is behind it. More experts of the four major forces are outside the tomb. Once Su Fong heard this, he calmed down. It was not difficult to think of this. The four major forces had spent so much effort to obtain the Yellow Springs Demon Emperor's treasure. They would use extreme measures in the end. Only the alliance of the four major forces would be qualified and have the strength to force open the mausoleum of the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor. Although the other experts were powerful, they couldn't move the mausoleum of the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor by themselves. The four major forces were located around the desolate lake, Astral World. They had the advantage. The other forces could not send a large number of experts into the wasteland to openly fight with the four major forces for the treasure. At this moment, Su Fongdu slowed down again. What a familiar sword chi. Right, I know who it is. It's an expert from the Jinwu Villa. A second-rate force dares to come to the tomb. Su Fong suddenly smiled and turned to fly in another direction. Since he could get the latest information from Immortal Changgu, he did not need to rush to the underworld Tao staircase. After a few breaths, he saw two cultivators fighting in the demonic fog. One of them was releasing a very strong sword chi. It was an old man. At a glance, he was an expert from the Jinwu Villa. A second-rate force, this old man must have a high status. As for Lingrun, she was an expert from the Clear Sky 10,000 Scrolls Gate. You're from the Jinwu Villa. You're a righteous cultivator. If you give up on the Emperor's treasure trove, the four major forces will let you live. Hurry up and stop resisting. The Clear Sky 10,000 Scrolls Gates expert was a middle-aged man. He was clearly a higher-up. He was as strong as a special disciple, and much stronger than ordinary special disciples. The Jinwu Villa's old man was indifferent. He did not want to waste this trip. The 10,000 Scrolls Gates expert was no longer polite. The two of them fought in the demonic fog, and they quickly found some nether guards to surround them. What four major forces? Someone as strong as the Jinwu Villa will naturally become a chess piece in my hands. Su Fong coldly swept his gaze over them. He suddenly released his life aura, attracting even more nether guards. The two of them were miserable. They did not know why so many nether guards had suddenly appeared. At first, they were fighting on their own, but soon they were all fighting the nether guards. Heavenly Devil Blood Plate. It was time to make a move. Su Fong flew out of the demonic fog. He flew past the nether guards and shot a ray of demonic light at the Jinwu Villa's expert. The demonic light was too sudden, and the other party's expert did not even notice it. How could they have the time to sense anything else? As a result, a ray of light enveloped them. They struggled a few times before disappearing into thin air. The other Clear Sky 10,000 Scrolls Gates expert also used this method to be sucked into the Heavenly Devil Blood Plate. It's time to go to the Underworld Staircase. A map condensed in his mind. The Underworld Staircase that Changgu Xianran spoke of was the end of the third layer of the Yellow Springs Underworld. It led to the fourth layer of the Emperor's Mausoleum. Half an incense stick's worth of time later, he finally passed through the demonic fog. Using his perfect realm ability, he saw that there really was a staircase 5 miles in front of him. It was very spectacular, and it led to the highest entrance. A large number of experts were fighting at the top and bottom of the underworld staircase, or they were fighting against the nether guards on either side of the staircase. These nether guards were the guardians of the underworld staircase. They were not weak, and they were much stronger than ordinary nether guards. Chapter 1146. The guards on both sides of the underworld staircase were all monsters. Whether it was a 3-bodied snake monster or a 2-headed tiger monster, any cultivator who passed through the underworld staircase would have to fight with those monsters. Looking away from the underworld staircase, below, the 4 major forces had set up a formation to protect the injured or surrendered experts. Some experts were suppressing them, and in more places, there were experts fighting and rushing towards the underworld staircase. Su Fong also saw some demon experts who seemed to be stopping the experts from entering the underworld staircase. I don't see Yin Sin Shin, Long Xiaojun, and the other experts, but Immortal Changgu is near the staircase. It seems that the top experts have already passed through the underworld staircase and entered the fourth level of the tomb. After sensing for a while, Su Fong immediately contacted Immortal Changgu and got the latter's confirmation that the top experts had indeed passed through the underworld staircase one after another. The high-level experts of the four major forces and the powerful special disciples had also entered, such as Yin Senshin, Xuanxin Fairy, Huangfu Fei, and the others. I also want to directly enter the fourth level of the tomb, then find a secret passage and quietly enter the tomb of the Great Emperor. And there's not much time. The four major forces are simply inside the tomb and can't suppress so many experts. The situation is out of control. There's only one result if this continues. The real forces of the four major forces will forcibly attack the tomb from the outside and cooperate with the experts inside. Whoosh! Seeing everything in his mind, he immediately displayed his divine powers to the extreme. After passing through layers of demon fog, he gradually passed by some experts. Because he had a certain level of Dao body ability, Su Fong didn't feel any shackles now, and his thoughts and senses were as calm as in a normal environment. Mask. Su Fong's speed was indescribably fast. After a dozen breaths, he passed a large number of cultivators and finally arrived at the underworld staircase. Unexpectedly, not far away, two demon experts were fighting with a few cultivators while dealing with a fierce lion guard next to them. Their eyes fell on Su Fong. Not only that, but people around and above also noticed this masked cultivator who suddenly flew out of countless cultivators at an astonishing speed and appeared on the underworld staircase. Whoosh! Ignoring these people, taking advantage of the surrounding underworld guardians who were crazily entangling a large number of experts, he stepped out like a gust of wind, flashing through the experts with demon chi and crossed a large number of stairs. Bang! Unexpectedly, an old man suddenly leaped out from the midst of the battle. Like a sharp blade, he blocked Su Fong's path. The sharpness and Su Fong's aura clashed, causing Su Fong to retreat a few steps. As for the elder, he didn't even move a single step. Su Fong frowned. Brahma meditation sect. The elder was dressed in a plain robe without many Dao patterns. He had an ordinary aura. Among the four major forces, the cultivators of Star Palace had a desolate aura. The disciples of Fire Overflowing Divine Sun sect had an obvious, flaming real chi. The Clear Sky Thousand Scrolls door had an aura of various Dao techniques. The disciples of the Brahma meditation sect gave off a sense of tranquility and naturalness. But I can sneeze, He thought of a way to deal with the old man. The old man was furious. If you know what's good for you and don't take another step forward, we won't make things difficult for you. But if you want to step into the mausoleum again, don't blame me for killing you. Chi. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Fong spat out a stream of blood poison. Damn you. The old man unexpectedly released a defense, then took a few steps back. He was almost attacked by the guardian who released the terrifying snake body. Su Fong, however, was almost as fast as the old man. In a few steps, he went around from the other side. The old man controlled his flying sword and chased after him from behind. In front of him was a giant guardian with 4 arms. It stopped more than a dozen experts from entering the mausoleum, and each of its arms had a demonic blade, which was a magic treasure at the peak of the supreme grade. In addition to its sturdiness, its combat power made many cultivators unable to enter the mausoleum. Damn it! Su Fong was faster than the old man again. Moreover, there were experts constantly rushing over from the surroundings. The old man could not focus on Su Fong alone. Hearing the old man's angry voice, Su Fong summoned his feather fan. After stepping on the feather fan, his speed increased, but he was facing the savage, 4-armed giant. The giant seemed undefeatable, but it was still a nether guard. They had a common weakness, which was that they could only capture the aura of life. If it was a lifeless object, they would not be able to sense it. The other cultivators struggled to release their magic treasures to fight against the giant, but they could not get past it. However, Su Fong flew up from the feather fan and slowly passed over the giant like an ordinary person. The giant seemed to have met its master and let Su Fongda pass over it. Those cultivators were so angry that they couldn't accept it. However, there were several more cultivators in front of him who were trapped by the Netherworld Guardian. It could be seen that the Netherworld staircase had caused thousands of experts to die here. Using the same method, under the envy of the other experts, he passed over the Netherworld Guardian. Then, Su Fong arrived at the last few steps, the fourth floor of the underground palace. He increased his speed and climbed up the stairs. Su Fong thought it was a passageway, but he was surprised to see two Devil Path cultivators stepping on the corpse of a Righteous Path cultivator. They were staring at him as he descended the stairs. One of them kicked the corpse, turning it into a bloody mist. "We've been waiting for you for a long time. My lord has ordered that you kill my Devil World's experts and steal my lord's Frost Soul Blood fetus. Today, I will take your head." It seems those Devil Path experts below secretly notified the Devil World's experts. Su Fong slowly breathed. Ever since he had merged with his Tao body, Su Fong could clearly sense any movement within his body. When facing experts, not only would his breathing and mental energy change, but his blood, muscles, and breathing would also change. He turned into an ice sculpture and coldly sneered. "If you want to kill me, then I have to die. There's no such logic in this world. Since you want to kill me, then I won't be polite. Let's see who has the longest life." "Ignorant fool." Scolding. The two Devil Path experts didn't look like the Devil World's experts who were as handsome as women. Su Fong could also sense the origin of their auras. They were experts from the Nine Nightmare Demon sect. The Nine Nightmare Demon sect was a Devil Path force as powerful as the demonic mountain. Buzz. Mao Chong suddenly appeared beside Su Fong. After Su Fong released the blood poison, the two Nine Nightmare Demon sect experts never expected that the other party could control such a terrifying poison. They also released their auras and shook off the poison with their palms. As for the Devil Path expert in front, just as he opened his hands complacently and revealed his Talon-like devil artifact magic treasure, a silver line suddenly pierced toward him. Boom! One strike. The Talon-like Devil Path expert's Talon-like devil artifact was smashed into pieces. The silver line also pierced through his throat from the back, causing blood to spurt out. A supreme gray Tao artifact. The nearby expert suddenly trembled. Seeing his companion die in one strike, he was so scared that he turned around and wanted to escape. Supreme Primordial Spirit. Su Fong was already at the back. He captured this person's movements and controlled his consciousness. Therefore, when Mao Chong used the immortal piercing blade to kill the other expert, Su Fong knew that the devil next to him would definitely run away when he saw that it was a supreme gray Tao artifact. Suddenly, 4 demonic runes shot out from above. Ha! The 4 runes were the Lord of the Dark World, Night Demon's runes. The runes were material, but when they hit the Devil Path expert, the supreme primordial spirit broke through his primordial spirit defense like a tsunami and rushed into the depths of his mind. At this moment, his divine orifice was probably being swallowed by the waves. This was the terror of the primordial spirit. Mao Chong put away the immortal piercing blade and sucked the corpse of the demonic expert into his palm. When he arrived in front of Su Fong, the latter was controlling the supreme demonic blood plate's divine might and sucked the demonic expert's consciousness into his palm as well. The experts we will face later are all peerless experts. Go in and tell the Ghost Pass 5 freaks and the Great Monk to absorb the essence of the 2 experts' corpses and the Big Goblin's essence. Prepare to fight with the experts. With a thought, Mao Chong also disappeared from the Xinguang. At this moment, Su Fong looked ahead. It was another dark entrance to the Devil Light underground palace. Without hesitation, he stepped into the Devil Light barrier and felt all the auras behind him suddenly disappear. Here it comes. Suddenly, before he could completely pass through the Devil Chi barrier, he heard movement. Young Master has ordered to capture this person. If he is alive, I want to see him. If he is dead, I want to see his corpse. Su Fong, who was passing through the barrier, heard the movement and felt that it was very familiar. Who was it that was waiting to kill him at the entrance of the 4th floor? He immediately activated a large amount of blood mist. When he was about to step out of the devil chi barrier, he would sneak attack and spit out a large amount of blood poison. When he passed through the devil light, he finally knew who wanted to kill him. It was the three experts from the heavenly law immortal world who followed Long Xiaojun. Like Su Fong, the three of them also passed through layers of tests to become Long Xiaojun subordinates. However, they were different. The three of them wanted to get close to Long Xiaojun and establish themselves in the heavenly law immortal world. On the other hand, Su Fong only wanted to find out about Huang Lingyao's whereabouts. What a poison gas! The blood poison was repelled by the Dharma treasures. It was unknown whether the three experts were poisoned by the blood poison or the devil poison when they were in danger outside. There were many poison spots on their bodies, and all of them were more or less injured. Being able to follow Long Xiaojun to this place was enough to prove their auras. Emperor's Tomb. Su Fong ignored the three experts at this moment. Looking ahead, it was as if there was a divine might that parted the devil mist. About 10 miles away, the familiar Emperor's Devil Chi was released. There was also a statue of the Yellow Spring Emperor. The statue was built on a circular altar, and behind the altar was an oval-shaped tomb. It seemed that there was a formation there that prevented people from entering the tomb. Around them, more than 100 experts were locked in a fierce battle. They all wanted to be the first to enter the Emperor's tomb. Among them, Su Fong did not need to use his senses to see many familiar faces. First were the experts from the devil world who were surrounded by the righteous Dao experts. More than a dozen devil world experts were not far from the altar and were blocked by the righteous Dao experts. Among these experts were Fairy Xuanxin, Yin Senshin, Long Xiaojun, Huang Fufei, Huang Lingyao, and others. Nearly one-third of them were experts from the four major factions, including Li Tianqi. There were also some powerful experts from the constellation of Nine Heavens that Su Fong did not recognize. Apart from these people, the other half were experts from various places. For example, the group of people with the monk Shangda. However, only a dozen of them were still alive. For example, the expert surnamed Yin from the Tranquility Emperor's residence. Apart from these people, Su Fong did not see any of the others. However, they were all very strong. The higher-ups of the four major factions could only block and delay them. Su Fong secretly retracted his gaze. If possible, I will definitely suppress that expert surnamed Yin. However, there are still a few experts with him. If I want to suppress him, I will have to wait and see. After killing this person, I will go and help the young master. The three experts finally completely suppressed the strange blood poison and viciously attacked from all sides. Chapter 1147. With just the three of you, Su Fong opened his mouth again and spat out a wave of blood poison that looked like a bloody wave. Be careful, it's this damned poison again. Young Master is fighting with the experts in the Great Emperor's mausoleum. Our mission is to kill him, form the array, and trap him. Form the array. Blood poison again. The three of them cried out that it was not easy to parry, but the divine ability was also very domineering. Their strength was far greater than Su Fong's. Even the blood poison could only restrict their movements, but it was still impossible to force them back. The three of them released the power of their Dharma treasures. It was as if there was an endless attraction above Su Fong, fusing the three Dharma treasures and attacking Su Fong. Natal state. In an instant, the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda flew out of the void dust cauldron and into Su Fong's body. The doors of the Six Paths Pagoda, which was full of gold and silver divine power, suddenly opened with a frightening momentum. The divine power immediately entered his flesh and vital chi. The internal experts and the big goblin also entered battle mode. They all injected their Dharma powers and vital chi into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. At this moment, Su Fong clearly sensed that the vital chi and Dharma powers of countless experts first entered the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, then fused and exploded through the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. Then, the divine abilities entered his blood, flesh, and vital chi. This process was not only clear, but also very fast. It was almost done in one breath. Su Fong's eyes were burning. He looked at the divine power array that came from above and suddenly waved his hand. Could it be because I devoured Yu Jingnian's Dao body? If it wasn't for my current cultivation, I wouldn't have such perfect control. The power of the Dao body, the divine abilities, and the different parts of the body can transform all kinds of abilities. This is too coincidental. Yin Senshin, you killed Yu Jingnian and did me a big favor. I will now use a more advanced and magical divine power. Do you think I, Su Fong, am an ant? Who in this world can stop me? The big hand made a strange whooshing trajectory. After this trajectory, a shocking demonic sword chi appeared in Su Fong's right hand. It was like a demonic snake hiding in the demonic sword energy. This was a divine weapon from Baishan ancient demon, the soul-chasing demonic sword. It was originally given to the ghost Dao's 5 freaks to cultivate, but who would have thought that Su Fong would be able to condense the soul-chasing demonic sword, a top-grade Dao artifact. Crack! Before the defensive spell formation was fully formed, the 3 experts continued to suppress it. At the same time, they unleashed the power of magical items to attack the blood poison, preventing Su Fong from escaping before the spell formation was complete. Suddenly, as Su Fong tightly grasped the sword, a swift and fierce sword energy, like an eagle soaring through the sky, chopped down on the lower end of the 3 great formations. Without waiting for Su Fong and the 3 masters to prepare, the demonic chi sword momentum overbearingly cut the formation into 2 layers, like 2 walls collapsing on their own. If you want to kill me, you'll have to use even more powerful methods. Like a bolt of thunder, he escaped from the broken spell formation. Coming to the demonic chi in the void, Su Fong turned around and looked at the 3 stunned experts. His big hand had a sense of challenge. Don't be the one to kill you in the end. Sword flowing red dust. 10,000 heavy palm chi. Cloud swallowing proud sky. The 3 experts couldn't tolerate such a rampant Su Fong. Moreover, they followed the dignified heavenly law immortal world, so they must carry out the order to kill Su Fong. The blood poison was also suppressed. The 3 of them stepped out with the power of thunder, walking in the void and unleashing a vast divine ability together, like 3 giant beasts eating Su Fong as food. Blood Hell Wolf Smoke. With a flick of his left hand, Su Fong's ability to absorb the essence of heaven and earth and borrow the power of the stars had also been improved to a certain extent. In a moment, with the control of his will and divine power, a blood-colored smoke surged out of his finger and clashed with the divine abilities of the 3 experts. Whoosh! On one side of the poisonous smoke, an expert leaped out like a wild beast. Holding a peak top-grade flying sword, he slashed towards Su Fong. Bang! Su Fong didn't dodge or retreat. At this time, he wasn't Su Fong, but Ghostface Rakshasa. Moreover, he had a lot of secret support. Who was he afraid of? The sword chi from the soul, chasing demonic sword in his hand, quickly slashed across the sky and clashed with the opponent's flying sword. Sparks exploded from the flying sword, and the demonic chi sword was also affected to a certain extent. It felt like the sword chi was about to dissipate like smoke. But then Su Fong's eyes widened. Not only did the demonic chi sword reveal an astonishing amount of demonic chi, but it also spouted blood hell wolf smoke as he shook. Sizzle. It seemed that Su Fong's sword was above the opponent's strength. The sword shook the air, and the person was forced to take a step back. The blood hell wolf smoke was spouted again. The person couldn't dodge in time and couldn't control the power of the vibration. His body was suddenly covered by the blood hell wolf smoke. For a moment, the person screamed in pain, and his Taoist robe was constantly corroded. Hiss! Hiss! The other 2 experts had also arrived. One of them used a flying sword, and the other activated a foot-long silver flying knife. Flying sword. Flying knife. As soon as they came out, the 2 demonic treasures left their hands. Under the control of the 2 masters, the 2 sharp blades suddenly appeared in front of Su Fong, stabbing toward his neck and heart. In an instant, the demonic chi sword turned into a defense, forming around Su Fong. Clap! Clap! The two demonic treasures fiercely attacked the defense, and their momentum was so heavy that the defense was about to shatter. But Su Fang's eyes were constantly shining, and the two demonic treasures didn't break the defense. It felt like there was an invisible force suppressing the two demonic treasures. There was indeed an invisible force. Su Fang was using his advantage of not being shackled. Instead, he used the shackles of the demonic chi around him to deal with the momentum of the two demonic treasures' attacks. So he cleverly used his defense to block the attacks of the two demonic treasures. But using his defense to directly resist the demonic treasures, this kind of strength still made Su Fang feel an astonishing pressure and momentum. Blood hell wolf smoke, blood poison. His body flashed, dodging the two demonic treasures, and then his hands rolled out at the same time. Waves of blood hell wolf smoke and blood poison wantonly rushed toward the three masters. Bang! Just as Su Fang and the three masters were locked in a fierce battle. The amazing ability of a great fulfillment made Su Fang suddenly hear a movement from behind him. Turning around, his eyes focused, and he was shocked. The demonic chi, sword in his hand, slashed out in the air. Bang! The demonic chi in front of him stabbed out a sword chi. Behind this sword chi was the flying sword, which also released the sharpness and fierceness of a high-grade Dao artifact. It could have seriously injured and killed Su Fang silently, but he had the ability of a great fulfillment. He appeared in time and blocked the opponent's attack with his sword. After the collision, the demonic chi and the demonic chi around Su Fang and the sword chi were dispersed. A man appeared in front of them. His robe had the aura of the clear sky, Thousand Scrolls door. When the demonic chi was completely dispersed, Gu Huajun's cold and embarrassed smile appeared. Gu Huajun, it's you. Su Fang glanced indifferently. Gu Huajun slowly took a few steps forward. The flying sword in her hand looked like it was made of jade. Why are you not surprised at all? When I stepped into this place, I felt your aura. That day, I ruined your plan. Once you and I met, you would think of ways to get rid of me. You are a genius disciple of an orthodox sect. If this matter were to spread, how would you survive in the clear sky, Thousand Scrolls door in the future? The reason you can think of is the reason why I want to kill you. This time, I won't be as lucky as last time. This is the territory of the four major forces. I can kill you like killing an ant. Even if I can't kill you, there'll be others who won't let you go. Let's see who's stronger. Su Fang was very clear that this time, Yin Xin, Gu Huajun, Long Xiaojun, and the Devil Path's experts wouldn't let him off. You don't need to defend against me. My goal is the same as yours. We all want to kill this corrupt cultivator. We can work together to deal with him. Gu Huajun actually cupped her fists toward the three experts. All right, you are an expert of the clear sky, Thousand Scrolls door, so we naturally trust you. The three of them agreed at the same time. You really are a nest of snakes and rats. None of you are good people. Su Fang shook his head. Seeing the four of them, he could only be on guard. There was no way he could kill them. Haha, any method that can kill people is a good method. Brother, go. The three experts continued to follow Long Xiaojun. On the other hand, Su Fang could only dodge. Gu Huajun seemed to have found that he had the advantage in numbers. When Su Fang dodged, he activated his flying sword and slashed down. This sword also contained the sword intent of many different cultivation techniques. Other people's swords only contained one kind of sword intent. But Gu Huajun's sword contained over 10 different kinds of sword intent. This was the extraordinary power of the clear sky, Thousand Scrolls door. Just like that, Su Fang waved his sword, and the sword chi in his hand clashed again. More than a dozen sword wills formed an imposing aura and attacked him with devastating force. Swish, swish. The three experts behind him quickly took advantage of this opportunity to trap Su Fang. Even if you want to die, I won't let you live. Su Fang suddenly sneered. For some reason, Gu Huajun, who was currently suppressing Su Fang, felt an indescribable threat that caused his following attacks to slow down by half a beat. On the other hand, the three experts leaped through the air to attack. Su Fang's divine aura suddenly condensed in front of him. He reached out with his hand. An array of silver light shot toward the three of them. Puffed. The expert closest to him had originally been smiling savagely. He wanted to suppress Su Fong. But who would have thought that the silver light would not be crushed by his magic treasure's divine aura? On the contrary, it was unable to suppress it as it passed through him. His body trembled, and a finger-sized hole appeared in his neck. The divine aura of a top gray Dao item was piercing through his body and head. The two experts beside him hastily dodged in fright, not to mention Gu Huajun, who had already dodged to the side. When he saw that expert being killed with just a thought, cold sweat continuously dripped down his face. Su Fong and Mao Chong's illusory figures waited for the silver light to return. Without waiting for them to react, they had already jumped into the devilish mist. Chase. One of the two experts had just appeared and was about to chase after them. But when he saw the other expert standing there without moving, he suddenly shook his head stutteringly. Could they chase after them? Their opponent had killed their companion in one move. If they chased after them, what power did they have to fight Su Fong? They were just courting death. Damn it. No wonder this person was able to escape from Yin Sun Shin. He did not see Gu Huajun take a step forward. He trembled, and his mind was filled with the scene of that expert being killed instantly. Yin Sun Shin, you can't even kill him, yet you want me to kill him. You clearly want me and the evil path cultivators to kill each other. And we know your secret. No matter which one of us dies, you'll have an advantage. Then you can get rid of the one who survives, and no one will know what despicable things you did to Xuanxin. Yin Sen Shin, if I, Gu Huajun, want to kill someone, I will kill you. They didn't come. As expected, they didn't come. These people are like grass in the wind. They run wherever the wind blows. I knew that if I used the immortal piercing blade to kill one of them, they would give up on chasing after me. In the distant, devilish mist, Su Fong slowed down. He turned around and used his great perfection to look. Gu Huajun and the two experts had parted on bad terms. Chapter 1148. I can't get any closer. Those experts want to kill me, and they're all experts. It's best if I don't get involved. I'll find the secret passage from the map and enter the Emperor's training ground first. Since they weren't going to kill him, Su Fong began to think of a way. He stared at the scene of slaughter in front of him. Huang Fu Fei, Fairy Xuanxin, Li Qianxi, Long Xiao Jun, Yin Senshin, the experts of the devil world, and so many other experts. You can slowly kill them all. Everything will belong to me, Su Fong. In an instant, he found the location of the secret passage from the map in his mind. Looking to the right, near the statue of the Yellow Springs Devil Emperor, there were cold rocks, as well as some devil pillars, altars, and sacrificial statues. And the secret passage was deep in there. Hiding his aura and controlling his devil chi, he let out the blood hell wolf smoke. His entire body seemed to have turned into a cloud of devil chi as he moved forward. In the center of the underground palace, the experts were still fighting. Su Fong had immortal Hazegu continue to pay attention to the movements of the four major powers. He also took another look at Fairy Xuanxin. Fortunately, she was strong enough to fight a Devil Dao expert. There were also experts from the Clear Skies Thousand Scrolls Gate helping her. With so many experts around, I believe that no matter how vicious Yin Sun Shin is, he won't do anything to her. Furthermore, he's focused on Huang Fu Fei, the number one beauty of the constellation of Nine Heavens and the number one disciple of Huiyin Shinrikyo are a perfect match. 10 breaths later, he arrived at a large number of devil pillars and sacrificial statues. Flying deeper, he saw that these sacrificial items were just decorations and not treasures. They were carved from stone, and there was nothing special about them. There were no nether guards here, and the statues were lifeless. It's this devil platform. Su Fong suddenly found a large black rock among the devil pillars. He felt that it was about to play something. When he came to the top of the rock, there was a slight depression in the center, like the bottom of a basin. Secret passage wasn't it just an ordinary rock? Looking around and confirming that there was no one around, Su Fong immediately activated a seal. Buzz! 2 figures suddenly, one on the left and one on the right. One was ancient Devil Bai Shan, the other was Yin Qianlu. This was the will they had left behind in Su Fang's mind. After the two Dharma protectors appeared, their wills continued to sit cross-legged, as though they were somehow connected to the Devil's Stone. Therefore, when the two of them arrived at the center of the Devil's Stone, they did not do anything. They only released some devil chi, and when their wills revealed some devil light, the center of the Devil's Stone also revealed a devil light, but this devil light was a blood-red light. The blood-red light then gradually became a blood eye. This eye was the entrance to the emperor, to the tomb. Young man, the two of us have completed our mission. Now, use the Yellow Springs Blood Sea to meet the will of the Great Emperor. Once you obtain the inheritance of the Great Emperor, whatever path you take next will be your own business. It has nothing to do with us or the Great Emperor. We hope that you can find the answer. Our will accompany you forever. We hope that we can follow you to the other side of cultivation. Chi ancient devil Bai Shan and In Xianliu's consciousnesses emitted a faint sound. Before Su Fang could react, they burned into a demonic light and drilled into Su Fang's eyes again. Seniors, I, Su Fang, am confident that I can reach the heights that you have always dreamed of. At this moment, he immediately formed a seal, and his body suddenly exploded. His body turned into a pool of blood and slowly entered the blood eye. The moment he entered the blood eye, it felt similar to when he entered the two ancient devil training grounds. However, this blood eye gave Su Fang an absolute feeling of profoundness. When he completely entered the blood eye, the Devil's Stone returned to normal. Su Fang floated in a blood-colored passage. He began to control the Yellow Spring Blood Sea and flew towards the end. After a while, he found the exit. When he appeared at the exit, he was so frightened that he almost fainted. Why? In front of him were countless statues of humans and monsters. There were at least 10,000 of them. They were tall and majestic. They were lined up neatly and looked towards a huge tomb. As for this place, other than the statues, there were no other treasures. It was different from what Su Fang had imagined. This place should be the same as the two ancient devil training grounds. There should be treasures everywhere. If these statues are nether guards, Su Fang coldly swept his gaze over them and released his senses. Now he knew that the more he thought about something, the more he feared it would come true. After he released his senses, he found that these statues were indeed nether guards. They all contained a certain amount of life and aura. They were even stronger than the nether guards outside. With such an army of nether guards, who would dare to plunder a sovereign's tomb? Young man, come. Suddenly, just as Su Fang was thinking about how to not alarm the nether guards, an old man's hoarse voice came from the tomb. Who is it? That scared Su Fang silly. Could there be a living person here? That voice was indeed real. However, the other party didn't answer him. Since the other party had already said so, and there was no other way out, Su Fang mustered up his courage and walked past the nether guard army step by step. As expected, none of the nether guards had awakened. They were completely still. Su Fang let out a sigh of relief. He quickened his pace and walked toward the tomb. When he reached the tomb, he walked up the stairs. At the center of the tomb was a 30-meter-long, blood-colored stone coffin. He had been looking forward to seeing it, but now he was filled with apprehension and unease. That was because he sensed the aura of life from the stone coffin. His unease suddenly turned into shock. He cried out in disbelief, "Impossible, impossible! The Yellow Springs Devil Emperor is still alive." Don't be afraid. If he really is alive, he wouldn't be hiding here. At this moment, Law seemed to be paying attention to Su Fang's every action. With Law, Su Fang forced himself to calm down in the shortest time. When he arrived in front of the stone coffin, he saw that it was surrounded by devil seals, devil runes, and a mysterious sealing totem. At the center of the totem was a blood person sitting in the lotus position. The blood person didn't have any facial features. It looked like the nether guards outside, but the blood person wasn't a nether guard. The life aura Su Fang sensed came from the blood person. Furthermore, that aura contained the same blood chi as the Yellow Springs Blood Sea. That was enough to prove that this blood person was the former Yellow Springs Devil Emperor. The blood man had no facial features, but he spoke in a hoarse and ancient voice. "Young man, I have been waiting for you for so long. Since you are here, you are my successor. I don't care what kind of cultivator you are or what kind of person you are. From now on, you are my successor. You really are the senior Yellow Springs Devil Emperor." Su Fong almost prostrated himself on the ground. "What you see is the undying blood spirit that I refined. When I was killed by the heavenly punishment, I was fortunate to have separated a part of my consciousness and hid it in a treasure. That was how I was able to escape the heavenly punishment and fuse with the blood spirit. That's how I managed to survive until now. You really are the senior Devil Emperor." He was actually talking to a supreme giant from countless years ago. He was still a living being. I don't want people to call me the Devil Emperor. I'm an emperor, but I don't want to be associated with the devil path. Back then, the Lord of the Devil race sent me a message telling me to go to the devil world, devour the devil race's sacred blood, and become a part of the devil race. You can just call me the Great Devil Emperor. The blood spirit's voice was still hoarse. "There's not enough time. I've waited for so many years for your arrival." Outside the tomb, there seemed to be major forces gathering their power. Soon, they'll forcefully break into my training ground. From the moment cultivators enter the tomb, the power of the entire tomb is actually weakening. That's why the entire tomb is disappearing. Junior Su Fong greets Senior Yellow Springs. Su Fong stepped forward and bowed to the blood spirit Yellow Springs Devil Emperor. "Su Fong, I've been paying attention to you ever since you came to the outer realm where the tomb is located. You have many tricks up your sleeves, as well as the perfect physique that was still prevalent in my era. You killed enemies that were dozens of times stronger than you as a heavenly immortal. This is the same as what I did back then. You have a shadow of me back then, but I failed and fell on the path of cultivation. In the end, I hid here to avoid the heavenly punishment." The Yellow Springs Devil Emperor was very serene, without a trace of unwillingness or exhaustion. "I believe the two guardians have told you about my past. What I want to say is about my cultivation technique and my understanding of reincarnation. Listen carefully." "Okay." Su Fong nodded with a solemn face. "When I became a genius in the outside world, I accidentally obtained an ancient magic treasure called the Reincarnation Sword. After I fused with this immortal sword, I named it the Yellow Springs Reincarnation Sword. I didn't manage to find out the origin of this sword, nor did I find any clues even after looking through the ancient books. I guess it's a peerless magic treasure created by a certain expert in a certain era in a certain civilization. The Yellow Springs Reincarnation Sword has a supreme Tao technique called the Great Tao Reincarnation. It's mainly sword intent, but its essence is the Great Tao. After countless years of cultivation, I comprehended the Yellow Springs Reincarnation technique in the process of using the Yellow Springs Reincarnation Sword to carve out a path for myself. I wanted to live forever and become the enemy of heaven and earth. Why can't everything in the world control their own destiny? The Yellow Springs Blood Sea is a peerless cultivation method that I comprehended through body cultivation when I was in the small world. It's a physical cultivation method. When I comprehended the Yellow Springs Reincarnation technique, I wanted to use everything I had mastered to create a real reincarnation, a real immortality. Later, with the Yellow Springs Blood Sea as the origin and the Yellow Springs Reincarnation technique as the divine power, I created the Yellow Springs Immortal World and created the Reincarnation Dharma in it. I used the Reincarnation Divine Power to cover the entire immortal world so that all the aura, matter, and life in the immortal world could be endlessly multiplied in my Reincarnation Divine Power. Then, with the Yellow Springs Blood Sea as the origin, I created the Immortal Blood Spirit, which is the blood spirit you see now. Then, with the Reincarnation Divine Power, I used the Reincarnation Divine Power to shackle and control the souls and remnant thoughts of those dead or fallen practitioners. I poured the power of reincarnation into the body of the Immortal Blood Spirit, and the result was the perfect birth of a conscious, immortal blood spirit. The blood spirit was comprehended from the Yellow Springs Blood Sea. It has a strong life force, but it doesn't have a soul. I'll let the souls of the dead take over the immortal blood spirit, and then through their own cultivation, the faceless immortal blood spirit would gradually transform into a human appearance. When you heard this, you thought that I had mastered the secret of life and death, and could let the dead be reincarnated in the Yellow Springs immortal world without limit. At that time, I also thought that I had done it. However, later on, these humans who were resurrected by the immortal blood spirit did not abide by the heavenly Tao, because they were resurrected in the Yellow Springs immortal world. When they absorbed the natural spiritual chi outside the Yellow Springs immortal world, it was equivalent to absorbing the aura of the heavenly Tao. Thus, these resurrected practitioners were unable to control their bodies, and their consciousness gradually entered the demonic Tao. Killing and lust began to spread throughout the Yellow Springs immortal world. When the blood spirit Netherworld Emperor said this, he suddenly felt a little lonely. Anyone would feel the same if they were in his shoes. Establishing an immortal world, comprehending reincarnation, and allowing others to be resurrected without limit. This was success. Chapter 1149. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor's words were filled with deep recollections. However, for Su Fong, everything he heard was too unreal. In this world, there were immortals who could control the life and death of others. And not just one person, but an entire immortal world. Was this a human? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a god. Once the living beings in the Yellow Spring immortal world absorb the natural aura of the heavenly Tao, they will slowly lose their souls and go crazy. At that time, I gradually felt that my samsara of life and death was immature. I was too anxious to crack and master the power of life and death. As a result, the Yellow Spring immortal world attracted the will of the heavenly Tao. At that time, I also fell into a dead end and a bottleneck because of my research on the samsara method. But vaguely, I felt that my time was coming. It wasn't that I didn't have the time to transcend the tribulation and break through to another level, but that there was a kind of heavenly Tao that wanted to destroy the Yellow Spring immortal world. It made me suffer the consequences of activating the forbidden technique. At the last moment, I thought a lot. My Yellow Spring Blood Sea and Yellow Spring Reincarnation technique were only superficial. I was too anxious and distorted the immortal world to resist the heavenly Tao. In the end, many innocent people died, tragically with me. It was also the first time in my life that I knew the horror of the heavenly Tao. At that time, the power of heavenly punishment shattered my samsara divine might with just one blow. It also shattered my Tao body and burned my soul, making it impossible for me to exist in a world with the heavenly Tao. I fell. Fortunately, I separated a wisp of my consciousness before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to tell you all this. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor continued to say this, as if he was paying attention to Su Fong to see his reaction. Su Fong's eyes lit up. Senior, you mean that life can never go against the will of the heavenly Tao? At the same time, when you warned me, you also hoped that someone could subvert everything and complete your samsara method. Then are you afraid? Are you afraid to see my end? I'm afraid. I think everyone is afraid of death. But Junior came from a small world to a large world and experienced too many life and death situations. I suddenly understood a truth. Fear is also death. Why can't I take a gamble? Perhaps then there will be some hope. It seems that the person who can gain the recognition of the two great guardians is indeed the one I've been waiting for. Su Fong, I've only just comprehended the threshold of the art of reincarnation. But you're lucky to be standing at the threshold of the art of reincarnation. You're able to see further. Now that I've fallen, all the past disputes are gone. I can't see what the art of reincarnation and the Yellow Spring Blood Sea will become in your body. But I believe that you can surpass us, the ancients. Sangwis suddenly beckoned to Han Shuo and said, "Come here. This emperor is about to die, and it's time for me to end everything. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. In the end, I will pass on everything I had in my life to you." Su Fong was puzzled. Senior, since you're using a young immortal to possess this undying Sangwis, then according to what you said, you won't die. Even if this Sangwis can't, Junior can create another Sanguis in the future to allow Senior to continue living. When Junior is truly strong, I can even reincarnate Senior. No, you don't have that ability. Even the power of the immortal world doesn't have that ability. That's because my consciousness is no longer controlled by the heavenly Taos. Once I leave this tomb and breathe in the natural spiritual energy, or even see the sun, I'll immediately disappear. That's only secondary. There's another reason. Since I'm the loser, I should choose the consequences of my failure. If I don't have that bit of courage, then I'm not the Yellow Springs Grand Emperor. Senior. There's no need to say that. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor's Sanguis suddenly erupted with divine might. It swept Su Fong into the air. The Sanguis also began to form hand seals. Blood chi and divine might began to break out of its body and enter Su Fong's body. The blood chi forcibly entered Su Fong's body, regardless of whether he was willing or not. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor said faintly. His blood spirit body had already begun to break into fragments, and some ashes were peeling off. Blood spirit body contains this emperor's blood, which can help your Yellow Spring blood sea advance to another level. However, this emperor will not fully assist you in cultivating the Yellow Spring blood sea, because this emperor's Yellow Spring blood sea is not perfect. Once it is forced upon you, it will greatly limit your future. Since you have already obtained the Yellow Spring reincarnation technique, I will now place the Yellow Spring reincarnation sword and the storage ring into your body. All of this emperor's treasures are in there. The treasures this emperor left for you, and some of my thoughts over the years are all yours. Senior, you're a heaven's chosen of this generation. Unable to control his body, Su Fong didn't expect the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's consciousness to be so powerful that it could easily control him. This great emperor isn't worthy of being called a heaven's chosen, but can be considered as having some accomplishments. However, I believe that your accomplishments will be even greater. Originally, this great emperor could plant my consciousness in your mind like the two protectors, but doing so would only harm you. There's something I have to tell you at the last moment. The Sanguis was only left with an afterimage. Its life, aura, and strength seemed to have disappeared. However, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's voice was still clear. That's heavenly punishment. Back then, the heavenly punishment that attacked me turned into a giant who called himself Shinja Tianjun. You must be careful of this person. Who is Shinja Tianjun? Controlling the heavenly punishment? Didn't that mean that he controlled the heavenly Tao? He won't tolerate the appearance of another cultivator who defies the heavenly Tao in the future. Therefore, in the depths of the heavenly Tao, there will be a pair of eyes staring at this great emperor's aura, which is you. Therefore, in the future, you must walk your own path of cultivation. Don't follow my old path. Try your best to attract the attention of the heavenly Tao before you achieve great success. At that time, the heavenly Tao will be able to see that you have this great emperor's aura in your body. It will chase you to the ends of the earth and kill you. This junior will bear it in mind. Hearing this, Su Fong shuddered. Doomsday, my successor. Whoosh! The last blood seal that was sitting cross-legged disappeared along with the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's voice. Then, the entire seal collapsed like blood-color powder. Boom! Having just received the inheritance, Su Fong was about to take another look at the Great Emperor. Unexpectedly, a huge force that seemed to be able to shatter the heavens and the earth came from outside the underground palace. Then, a series of rumbling sounds could be heard. Right in front of the underground palace, a vast light actually cut open a large hole from the entrance all the way to the top. Su Fong was shaken to the point of bleeding from his 7 orifices. When he looked at the entrance, he saw that it was almost 10 miles deep in the Xianguang. In the depths of the Xianguang, there was the aura of the 4 great forces, the constellation of 9 heavens, the Brahma meditation sect, the clear sky myriad scroll gate, and the Huayan Shinrikyo. And in the depths of the Xianguang, Su Fong could vaguely see an old man, about 100 of them, condensing their divine power to control the Xianguang. Master, do you hear me, Master? As the 4 great forces broke into the mausoleum, The voice of immortal Changgu's primordial spirit came from outside the entrance. The four great forces are attacking the mausoleum. Su Fong immediately spoke to him. Master, where did you go? I've been trying to contact you, but there was no response. A few breaths ago, I received a message from the upper echelons, saying that I was far away from the central mausoleum. It should be the four great sects joining forces to attack the mausoleum. I didn't expect it to be so fast. I encountered a little accident. Fortunately, I'm fine. Take care of yourself. I'll leave the underground palace at any time. Su Fong immediately sealed his primordial spirit and quickly retreated because there were huge rocks falling in front of him. Rustle, rustle. At this moment, a large number of cultivators rushed out of the mausoleum that had been split open into Xianguang, all wanting to take the opportunity to obtain the treasures of the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor. Su Fong looked at the Xianguang in the depths of the entrance. A large number of experts from the four great forces were rushing over from the vast outer space a few miles away from the mausoleum. Once the four great forces entered, it would be difficult for anyone to obtain any benefits. Someone actually beat us to it. No, that person must have obtained the power of the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor long ago, and then secretly sneaked into the mausoleum to obtain the treasures. The treasures are on that person, in the sky above the falling rocks. Dozens, hundreds of experts rushed over from the underground palace outside the mausoleum. When they saw Su Fong floating above the stone coffin, they were not only shocked, but also unwilling to give up and wanted to kill. Clearly, Su Fong had arrived one step earlier, and all the treasures were in his hands. It's actually him. More Huiyin Shinrikyo rushed over from behind, led by the Yen Sun Shin. When he saw the masked Su Fong, he was unable to restrain his anger. We can't let him go. A group of experts from the demon world also rushed over. It was that handsome man. He was still as handsome as before, unlike the other experts from the demon world who had transformed into ugly appearances. When they saw Su Fong, they all wanted to take a bite out of him. Useless trash. You can't kill him, and you let him. Another group of experts rushed over. It was the son of the immortal emperor from the heavenly Tao, immortal world, Long Xiaojun. He was also very shocked. Then, Huang Lingyao also came to the side and directly revealed his killing intent. It's him. Another group of experts from the clear skies Thousand Scrolls Gate appeared. Flying at the front was the number one fairy, Fairy Xuanxin. She followed everyone's gaze and saw the masked Su Fong floating above the tomb. She also found it hard to believe. The two sides were separated by about 1 li. In the middle was the falling rocks, as well as the crazily rising poisonous gas and demonic fog. Su Fong looked at the crowd. In the blur, he could see many familiar faces. The treasures of the Yellow Spring Devil Emperor belong to me. Ghostface Rakshasa. Of course, I only got a portion of it. There are more treasures that have been sealed and activated by the Great Emperor. Whether you want them or not is your problem. I only need a portion. Arrogant. In an instant, hundreds of experts angrily appeared in front of the entrance. Oh no, the four factions used a formation to seal the outside and sent countless experts. Hurry up and snatch the treasures. In the depths of the entrance, the experts of the four factions were only about 1 li away. If not for the influence of the rising demonic fog, they would have already reached the bottom. The hundreds of experts were also afraid of the demonic fog that had gone out of control. Because the tomb had been destroyed, everything inside was no longer under the tomb's control. But they still could not hold it in. Those experts activated their magic treasures, unleashing shocking attacks and defenses. They began to dodge the falling rocks, disperse the demonic fog, and kill their way in. Don't forget how many of the guards guarding the great emperor's tomb have been revived. Su Fong was not alarmed. He seemed to have absolute confidence that he could leave this place. His gaze landed on the nether guards below. Because the tomb had been destroyed and cultivators had appeared, these nether guards had already begun to revive. Furthermore, there were giant snakes that rose up and attacked the experts in the air. In the blink of an eye, more nether guards and demonic beasts began to kill their way in. Wooling Goblin, let's find a place to hide. Su Fong released a Xian Guang, and he disappeared into the Wuling Goblin's body. The Wuling Goblin entered the back of the tomb, searching for a place to hide. Su Fong also used the life-shrinking art within his body. Combined with his earth-attributed divine might, he allowed the Wuling Goblin's aura to fuse with the surrounding earth essence. Then, he arrived at some of the paintings and fused them with the stone walls. Chapter 1150. The paintings in the underground palace were vivid and lifelike. In addition, the Wuling Goblin also had the strength of a profound immortal, and its earth elemental ability was amazing. It merged with the stone wall to form a natural stone mark. Su Fong had become a bystander at this time. Far away in the paintings, watching the demon world powerhouses disregard the danger and kill to rob the treasures. Long Xiaojun, Yin Xin, and other powerful experts wanted to take advantage of the fact that the four major forces had not officially occupied this place to get something from the great emperor's treasure. Su Fong was in a state of recovery after swallowing the elixir and absorbing the demon qi. His injuries were still very serious. He wanted to take a look at the great emperor's inheritance as soon as possible. I can summon the Crucible Transformation Space and cultivate the Yellow Spring Blood Sea in the Crucible Transformation Space. I can now break through the heavenly immortal realm and step into the profound immortal realm at any time. He thought about it. Since he was waiting and couldn't go out now, how could he go out when the entrance of the tomb was controlled by the four major forces? After the Crucible Transformation Space appeared, Su Fong was naturally not worried with the Wuling Goblin's body wrapped around him. However, he also left the young immortal to observe the outside world with the Wuling Goblin. Once there was a chance, he would definitely leave. Now, it was equivalent to being trapped in the Great Emperor's tomb. Crucible Transformation World. The experts who were previously suppressed had all surrendered under the Vermilion Emperor's torture. Everyone went to the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's bottle space to cultivate. At this time, the Crucible Transformation World was empty, with only a few magic treasures. The array was condensed, and the body suddenly collapsed, turning into the Yellow Spring Blood Sea. At this time, the Yellow Spring Blood Sea had reached more than 500 feet. It was amazing, twice as big as before. This was the change when the Yellow Spring Great Emperor poured his power into Su Fong's body. Of course, it was not a blessing. For the Great Emperor, the power in the blood spirit was insignificant. However, for a heavenly immortal realm cultivator, it was a heaven-defying power. Every particle of the Great Emperor's power was a primer, the essence of life, containing the powerful will of reincarnation and immortality. Fusing with Su Fong's body meant that the will was also fused with Su Fong. However, Su Fong also had to cultivate to fuse with them to truly possess them. Communicating with the young immortals outside, he knew that in the Demon Emperor's underground palace, the cultivators were still unwilling to give up, but a large number of underworld guards had awakened. It would be very difficult for them to kill their way in. Sizzle. After the Yellow Springs Blood Sea was activated, it instantly boiled. The flame of life naturally burned. At this moment, Su Fong could already feel many natural changes. For example, controlling the Acheron Blood Sea was as easy as controlling a type of mystique. Furthermore, in the state of the Acheron Blood Sea, his great perfection senses were also astonishing. He could instantly activate his Blood Transformation True Body and Black Lotus True Body. As for other mystiques, he could finally control them flexibly. He had a feeling that his physical body had changed the moment the Great Emperor entered his inheritance. Then, it became easier to fuse with the Great Emperor's power. There was almost no need for him to cultivate. The Yellow Springs Blood Sea was already in the process of a natural transformation. In the process of cultivation, Su Fong couldn't figure it out. Could it be that the Great Emperor was secretly helping him? But Law's voice came from inside his body. I think it's because you devoured a Dao body. Yu Jingyan, but after I fused with his Dao body, the changes were not too obvious. Your cultivation is not enough, and your strength is not enough. Naturally, you can only devour a portion of the Dao body's power. It just so happens that this portion of the Dao body's power is changing in your body. In the future, the Tao body's power will constantly change as your strength grows. The Yellow Spring's Great Emperor is indeed powerful. His power will enter your body and increase your strength in all aspects. It is also equivalent to increasing your Tao body's power. I see. It's because I haven't figured out the Tao body's power. Yu Jingyan's Tao body's power can only be controlled by himself. Moreover, with his cultivation, he can't use it. The desolate physique, Tao body, and divine physique all have different abilities depending on the cultivator. In the future, the Tao body's power will slowly make you stronger. Look at the Yellow Spring's Blood Sea now. With the Tao body's power, the Great Emperor's will, and the fusion of power, you have already grasped the basics and can freely control it. I can already feel the power of reincarnation in my body. My vitality is more vigorous than before. The Dragon Taming Wood and Black Lotus True Body's vitality is also very shocking. Reincarnation. But Law shook his head. I heard everything the Great Emperor said. Although the Great Emperor is powerful, he still hasn't reached the peak. He is indeed too anxious. If he waited until he reached a wider world and grasped more divine abilities, then he would be able to establish an undying world outside the vast stars. Unfortunately, the Great Emperor is like building a car behind closed doors. If there was someone with extraordinary knowledge who warned him, he wouldn't have lost so badly. Law, it seems that you also know a lot about reincarnation. At this moment, Law suddenly became more extraordinary than he imagined. Everyone wants to surpass life and death and control their own destiny. For example, your life shrinking technique is a forbidden technique that I've never heard of in this world because no one can control their own destiny and no one can fight against the will of the heavenly way. Cultivators, at the end of cultivation, all want to be immortal and control the world. However, since ancient times, there have been very few successful cultivators, but there are some who have managed to stand at the peak. It's unrealistic to establish immortality among the countless immortal realms. Let's stop here and continue your cultivation. I think the reincarnation sword of the Emperor of Netherworld is very good. Its quality is at the same level as the 10 great Taoist instruments of the immortal realm. Reincarnation. After a moment of silence, Law seemed to calm down. At this moment, the Yellow Spring's Blood Sea was still boiling. It would occasionally swallow pills and various powerful resources. Now, some of the experts were also refining middle-grade, yin-yang, immortal sky pills. The Big Goblin and other experts also had cultivation resources, increasing Su Fong's overall strength. Of course, experts like Monk Shangda and the Ghost Owl's 5 Freaks did not see much benefit at the moment, but the yin-yang immortal sky pill was also a rare yang-chi pill for them. The Ghost Owl's 5 Freaks were teaching the grand fusion divine art to everyone. Even the monk was cultivating. Bai Ling, Green Feather King, Vermilion Emperor, Undying Turtle, and Skirich Venerable Monster were also cultivating. Su Fong, in the state of the Yellow Spring's Blood Sea, activated the Black Lotus True Body. In an instant, sharp Black Lotus blood threads were born. And now it was too terrifying. His Black Lotus blood threads are twice as thick as silk. His vital chi and life force could be cultivated without circulating in his meridians. Last time, Yin Senshin's sword contained the sword intent of the Tao of Destruction and seriously injured Su Fong. In fact, it could have killed Su Fong. But why was he still alive? On one hand, it was the power of perfection and the blood transformation true body. The biggest reason was that the Black Lotus True Body had formed countless Black Lotus blood threads in his body. The number of Black Lotus blood threads even began to surpass his meridians, connecting his body together. In addition, the Black Lotus blood threads were tough and could withstand attacks. With so many of them, the Black Lotus blood threads formed a defense of countless blood threads in his body. Together with his other abilities, he managed to survive the strike. About half a month later, Young Immortal suddenly moved and flew out of the crucible transformation. Sensing outside, he could no longer see the demon realm cultivators, Long Xiaojun, and the expert surnamed Yin from the Tranquility Emperor's residence. there was not much devil chi left. Most of it was natural spirit chi from outside the mausoleum. Therefore, cracking sounds could be heard everywhere. It turned out that the nether guards were either standing or in a ferocious state. But they all had one thing in common. They had turned into stone statues and were being eroded bit by bit, turning into dust. It seemed that without devil chi and the protection of the mausoleum's array formation, these nether guards could only start to break when they touched the spirit chi of the outside world. Just like the immortal blood spirit of the great emperor, it could only absorb the power of reincarnation in the yellow spring immortal world. But once it absorbed the aura outside the immortal world, it would not be able to control the power of the blood spirit. The nether guards could only exist in the mausoleum. When they touched the aura of the outside world, they would no longer be terrifying nether guards. They would lose all their divine power and become ordinary stone statues. At this moment, a large number of the experts of the four forces were either special disciples, high-ranking members, or elders. Ao Tian Changhen. Su Fong sensed a familiar aura. It was the elder of the constellation of 9 heavens, Ao Tian Changhen. As for those elders, although they weren't big shots of their respective dojos, they were still existences on par with immortal Changgu. Huang Fu Fei. Another familiar aura came from the other side. Not only did Su Fong sense it, but he also looked over. At the broken entrance of the mausoleum, the experts of the four forces who had fought with the experts in the underground palace were all recuperating and resting. There were 3 auras that Su Fong was most familiar with. One was Huang Fu Fei, the second was Yin Senshin, and the third was Fairy Xuanxin. Yin Senshin was actually together with Huang Fu Fei, bypassing countless experts from the 2 forces and even the formation to gather with a few experts in the same formation. Fairy Xuanxin was sitting with her legs crossed. Gu Huajun was nearby too. The experts from the other forces were also cultivating. At the moment, there were at least 10,000 experts from the 4 forces searching in the 4th level of the mausoleum. Su Fong knew that they had sent even more experts to the 3rd level of the mausoleum to search for treasures. As for the exit of the mausoleum, the exit that was connected to the extraterritorial space was already controlled by the formation of the 4 forces. In other words, apart from the disciples of the 4 forces, no one could leave the mausoleum. The 4 forces were very powerful. Soon, a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens approached the mural where Su Fong was hiding. There were all kinds of disciples searching around. This disciple was the higher-up of Huangfu Dojo of Star Palace, Huangfu Yinhai. In reality, he had another identity now. He was Su Fong's 2nd primordial spirit. It turned out that Su Fong was not worried at all because he had the 2nd primordial spirit. He was now Huangfu Yinhai, a higher-up. He could enter the mausoleum and the formation. The 2nd primordial spirit pretended to search for the entrance. When he touched the Wuling Goblin's mural, he suddenly sucked the Wuling Goblin into his palm. Su Fong and the Wuling Goblin entered Huangfu Yunhai's body together. The 2nd primordial spirit immediately said, "The 4 forces have already completely controlled the mausoleum of the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. After teaming up to break the mausoleum's formation and defense, be it inside or outside, all disappeared. Now, there is no danger in the mausoleum. The other cultivators who fought for the treasures have all tried their best to escape the mausoleum and hide in different corners of the extraterritorial space outside the mausoleum. The 4 forces did not pursue them." What else? In his body, Su Fong was understanding the whole situation. Of course, everyone is frantically looking for the ghost-faced Azura that I have transformed into. Everyone knows that the Yellow Spring Great Emperor was snatched away by me. The 4 forces and countless cultivators are probably busy looking for you now. Then, from today onwards, the ghost-faced Azura no longer exists. This identity helped me win the inheritance of the Yellow Spring Great Emperor from countless experts. It can also be sealed forever. Suddenly, Su Fong took off the ghost-faced Azura and returned to his original appearance. His body felt light. Even when he was in Huangfu Yunhai's body, he had never felt so free to breathe. Chapter 11:51. The second Yuan spirit was controlling Huang Fu Yunhai's body so that no one would be able to see anything strange. Night Demon's Yuan spirit's power was just that terrifying. She could use her own power to take over other people's bodies, devour their Yuan spirits and consciousness, and then take over their bodies. Most importantly, no one would be able to tell. Huang Fu Yunhai continued to search the surroundings. After a while, he found an excuse to fly out of the opening above. He flew a few miles to the barrier at the top of the tomb. The barrier was created by the experts of the four major powers, and there were also countless experts guarding it, let alone Su Fong. Even the experts of the devil world wouldn't be able to break through the formation of the four major powers. After checking the medallion, Huang Fu Yunhai was finally qualified to leave the formation. Yes, it's Fairy Xuanxin and Yin Senshin's auras. He had just flown out of the formation and arrived at the tomb's outer realm. This was still a hopeless situation, and it was still under the abyss of the Huang Zhe astral world. The four major powers had sent so many experts here, so they naturally had a way to get out. But it was hard to say what would happen to the other experts who had come to steal the treasure and were trapped in the outer realm. Suddenly, a thought mysteriously appeared in Su Fong's mind. He contacted Immortal Changgu, and Immortal Changgu, who was currently in the second layer, told Su Fong that the four major powers would most likely need to search for several years before they could leave. In other words, Su Fong could stay in the outer realm for several years, and then think of a way to suppress some experts. Just like when he went to the Nether Earth ruins and suppressed many experts. But right now, he wanted to see Fairy Xuanxin's situation more. Activating his perfect vision, he saw Fairy Xian Xin and Yin Xianxin standing on a huge rock in the mist behind the mausoleum. They were talking about something. Fairy Xuanxin shouted sternly, "Yin Xianxin, there's no need for you to act all lovey-dovey with Huang Fu Fei in front of everyone. You are clearly making things difficult for me in front of everyone. Although I do not care about this, please go far away when you are showing off your affection. Do you know how much I hate you, Xuanxin?" Yin Xianxin turned around and frowned. However, there was a cold smile on her face. Fairy Xian Xin, you were born with a golden spoon in your mouth. Your grandfather is a supreme elder. What am I, Yin Xianxin, considered to be? I am just an ordinary cultivator who worked hard to become a genius. But when I face you, you know what kind of feelings I have. You are the star in the sky, and I have to flatter you. If you are unhappy, my future is gone. I have to spend my energy to please your grandfather and everyone around you. But you are always so high and mighty. Even a smile or a glance from you is like charity. That's because I didn't love you before, but later on I did. Later on. Why did you love me? Because I, Yin Senshin, worked hard to gain the favor of the upper echelons of Huiyin Shinrikyo and the Clear Skies Myriad Scrolls Gate. Both sides nurtured me, and then I went on many dangerous missions to gain a foothold with my strength. Perhaps many people still think that I relied on you to get to where I am today, but all of this came from my own hands. If I hadn't worked hard to become a key disciple, would you have slowly looked at me, smiled at me, and finally fallen in love with me? So now that you've obtained the twin swords of annihilation, everything you've obtained, you have to pay it back in double. You feel that it was unfair back then. You feel that you were the only one who paid the price, while I didn't pay the price. I didn't care about you. This is a world where results matter. Who cares about the process? Look at that beggar on the side of the road. Everyone sees a pitiful worm, a lapdog. Who would want to know his past and his true identity? We cultivators are the same. Only when we become strong can we be looked up to. If we're weak, we're like beggars no matter where we go. You love me. I love you. Huh? Who cares about the process? Now that I have the twin swords of annihilation, the immortal world's 10 great Tao treasures, and even the Clear Skies Myriad Scrolls Gate has to be polite to me. Fairy Xuanxin couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. She took a few steps back. I really didn't expect you to be this kind of person. In order to gain my grandfather's favor, in order to make me believe in you, you even changed your name in front of us. You once said that you only have one heart for me, so you're called Yin Senshin because you only have me, Xuanxin, in your heart. This is what you call the process. There are many things that we should talk about face to face. Back then, you were like a phoenix on a branch in front of me. I had to look up to you. I also had illusions of you like other men, and I was your man. But later on, I realized that love can only be absolute with strength. Don't you see that? Now that I have strength, I only need to look at any woman, and she will throw herself into my arms. I once chased you, loved you, and changed my name for you, mainly to gain strength. I only like you a little bit, so it's fine if I say it clearly. Fairy Xuanxin, I, Yin Sun Shin, am ultimately a jade dragon. I will fly out of the pool one day, and this small world will not shackle me. Understand? Indeed, you should understand this kind of pain. In the past, only you were allowed to bring this kind of pain to others. You should understand how I felt in the past, haha. Whoosh. As Yin Sun Shin raised his head and laughed, Cha Na flew away on his sword. That suave figure didn't even leave a shadow behind. At this moment, Fairy Xuanxin also fell to the ground. She couldn't control her blood qi, and it seeped out of her body. Her vital qi and primordial spirit were also being released outside of her body. It was as if her strength was collapsing. Oh no! Su Fong suddenly realized something. Cha Na fused with his second primordial spirit and entered Huangfu Yunhai's body. He flew towards the mountain peak, hid his aura in midair, and brought Ghostface Rakshasa with him. In a few breaths, he appeared beside Fairy Xuanxin. She was already unconscious. Her vital qi and primordial spirit were collapsing rapidly. In less than half an hour, she would become immortal. Even her soul would be destroyed. To a woman, the word love is the most fatal weapon. Flame immortal heart, you are a vile person from head to toe. I admit that your talent is extraordinary, and your luck is astonishing. But to use a woman like this, what difference is there between you and a vile person in front of me? He immediately activated the seal and first sealed Fairy Xuanxin. Then, he took her to a secret cave nearby and flashed into it. After setting up the array, he quickly injected the power of the Nine Yang into Fairy Xuanxin's body. At the same time, he took out the Ghost King mask and put it on Huangfu Yunhai's face. His aura also turned into demonic qi. Not only did he inject the power of the Nine Yang, he also took out pills and released the power of his primordial spirit to help Xuanxin stabilize her divine aperture and suppress the spreading consciousness and dermic powers. Soon, Fairy Xuanxin returned to normal. Her strength stopped seeping out. 2 hours later, her body suddenly trembled and she woke up in a panic. She looked around in fear, and when she saw the familiar Ghostface Rakshasa, she suddenly looked around again. She seemed to think that it should be Yin Sun Shin beside her. Fairy, what a coincidence. I was passing by and saw that you fainted. I also saw that your strength was collapsing and your spiritual world was collapsing, so I tried to stop you. After all, I saved you once. I wonder what happened to you. He said in an indifferent tone, pretending that he didn't know anything. I'm fine. I fought with an expert before and was severely injured a few times. She immediately sat up straight, feeling a bit embarrassed. She tidied herself up and said, "We parted ways in the underground palace. I didn't expect you to be the last one to enter the underground palace and get the Thearch's treasure." It seemed that the two of them were the most familiar friends at this moment, but they were even more familiar strangers. Su Fong knew what kind of person Fairy Xuanxin was, so he definitely wouldn't secretly tell the four forces that the masked man who had obtained the Thearch's inheritance was here. He cupped his fists and said, "I'm quite lucky. Everyone fought so hard, but I accidentally triggered a mechanism and was sucked into the Thearch's mausoleum. Then why did you dare to appear here? Why didn't you think of a way to leave the extraterrestrial space?" Fairy Xuanxin was shocked and puzzled. "I can't leave just because I want to. Moreover, everyone thinks that I've already left. Instead, the most dangerous place is also the safest place. Because of this, I wouldn't have met you here. Otherwise, it would be a pity for you to die in this desolate place. Thank you for saving me once again. I don't need to thank you. It's just that I'm able to meet you again and help you this time. I don't know if I'll be fated to save you again after leaving this extraterrestrial space." It seemed that Su Fong was implying something with his words. I'll take my leave now. Now that everyone is looking for me, I naturally have to find a place to hide. Unexpectedly, Su Fong stood up again. You can hide here for a while. I'll release my aura, and no one will be able to sense this place. Fairy Xuanxin was surprised. However, Su Fong stepped out of the array and disappeared without a trace. This person is so mysterious. Who exactly is it? It's rumored that someone saw this person using Huiyin Shinrikyo's cultivation techniques. He's related to Huiyin Shinrikyo, but at least he's related to the Heavenly Tao immortal realm. This person was able to come here with Dragon Lord. Fairy Xuanxin changed the array and sat down quietly. She emitted cold air and froze the surroundings. Soon, Su Fong had already taken off the demonic Rakshasa and continued to stay in the body of the Cloud Sea host in Huangfu. However, he stopped not far away in a mountain range patrolled by some experts from the four major forces. Monk Shangda and the Ghost Dao's 5 freaks appeared. He looked at the 6 of them and said, "I'll give you a mission. This is the extraterrestrial space. I reckon that many cultivators are racking their brains to leave this place. You know many people and are knowledgeable. Persuade those people to join me. I'm an itinerant cultivator who has a way to leave this place. However, if you want to leave with me, you have to become my subordinates and work for me." "Yes, sir," the 6 answered. Su Fong then asked, "Big Monk, you should know that there's an expert surnamed Yin from the Tranquility Emperor's mansion, right? He was the middle-aged expert who looked somewhat like a leader among the more than 30 of you at that time. That man called himself Yin Mo. He said he came from the Yuan Lu world, not the Tranquility Emperor's mansion at all." The big monk scratched his head because he was still confused. "That's Yin Mo. You go look for his whereabouts while you're at it. Don't alert him. He's from the Tranquility Emperor's mansion." If Yin Mo is from the Tranquility Emperor's mansion, why didn't they say so? The Tranquility Emperor's mansion is the most powerful, mysterious force in the Xianao Great World. Perhaps they don't want others to know that the Tranquility Emperor's mansion also wants to get the treasures of the Devil Emperor of Netherworld. This time, of course, the Tranquility Emperor's mansion is not the only force that's hiding its identity. "Yes, sir." Only then did the 6 of them fly towards the depths of the mountain range. I hope Yin Mo is still in the extraterrestrial space. But he couldn't have come down to this dangerous extraterrestrial space alone. If there's someone from the outside helping the Tranquility Emperor's mansion. Su Fong waited silently and then hid in the dark. Using the identity of Huang Fuyanhai, he cultivated here. Even if the 4 superpowers found him, nothing would go wrong. He absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and then continued to cultivate inside the host body. At the same time, he also sensed the movements around him. Time passed slowly. Of course, Su Fong became more powerful as a whole. It's time to take a look at the inheritance of the great emperor. Now that I'm in the extraterrestrial space, if I can fuse with the underworld Samsara sword, I'll have a better chance to suppress those experts and protect myself. In the depths of the host body, Su Fong called out the Crucible Transformation Sword again. He could not wait to enter the Crucible Transformation space. Chapter 1152. Thinking of the great emperor's inheritance and many treasures, his heart surged with excitement. Crucible Transformation space. Alone, he floated in the array. With the void, dust Crucible Transformation, even if any experts outside sensed it, they would not be able to find any aura of the yellow ribbon great emperor's treasure. Spreading out his palm, a peak top-grade storage ring floated in the Xianguan. The whole thing was white jade with some white cloud patterns inlaid on it. It fell into the palm of his hand with obvious weight. It was the Yellow Spring True Qi of the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. Every cultivator's true Qi was different, but the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's true Qi contained the Yellow Spring Blood Sea and the power of reincarnation. It did not have the slightest demonic aura. The Yellow Spring Devil Emperor was not a demonic cultivator. Activating the same power, he did not expect the storage ring to have no restriction. How could there be a seal when it came from the great emperor's inheritance? His mind entered it in an instant. It was as if he had entered a familiar blood-colored ancient space. He did not expect all kinds of treasures to be floating in the air. It was like a sea of resources densely packed with all kinds of treasures. They were 10 times heavier than the 100 virtue, ancient demon, and the 1,000 stream. It was too shocking. Elixirs, secret books, jade, spirit stones, gems, spiritual objects, spirit veins, magic treasures. At a glance, there was everything. He was worthy of being the former lord of an immortal world. Su Fong was stunned for half an hour. He was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. Immediately, he excitedly passed through a large number of treasures and saw hundreds of huge ancient spirit veins. It was not a problem to build a sect with them. In the depths of the magic treasures, the aura of the top-grade magic treasures deeply attracted Su Fong. When he came to the center of the magic treasures, there were more than 100 top-grade Dao tools. The quality was not bad. Some were better than the immortal piercing blade. These were all precious treasures. Most of them were top-grade Dao tools. The aura of a Dao tool is the same as the Yunxiao Thunder Sword. The aura of several magic treasures in the depths was particularly shocking. Among them, there was a seal that was very similar to the Yellow Spring reincarnation art. Su Fong took a step forward and looked carefully. There was a flying sword inside. However, it was not an ordinary flying sword. The aura was as strong and deep as the Yunxiao Thunder Sword. The sword had a 3-foot peak, and the word reincarnation on the hilt gave out a strange luster. The Samsara Sword. The Underworld Samsara Sword was a divine weapon used by the Underworld Great Emperor in the past. Good sword attracted Law's praise deep in his body. Su Fong also sighed. It is indeed extraordinary. I feel that it is as powerful as Yin Zhao's Thunder Sword. This is a magic treasure that is as powerful as the 10 Great Dao treasures, and it has existed for even longer than the 10 Great Dao treasures. It is indeed a good sword, sharp and domineering. Yes. After getting Law's affirmation, Su Fong waved her hand and grabbed it into the seal. Of course, Su Fong had to release the Yellow Spring True Qi. Otherwise, what would he do if the Samsara Sword injured him? Fortunately, the Underworld Samsara Sword didn't reject it. When Su Fong grabbed the sword hilt, the sword suddenly emitted a lively sword cry. There were astonishing patterns on the sword, revealing a beautiful and tireless sword momentum. Master, what was even more unexpected was that the Underworld Samsara Sword would take the initiative to speak. Su Fong was almost scared out of his wits. He calmed down. It seemed that the sword spirit in the Samsara Sword was indeed a peerless treasure. Without fusion, the sword spirit could actively communicate with it. Since you call me master, I won't be polite. Samsara Sword, you used to follow the Underworld Great Emperor and look down on the world. From now on, you will follow me, Su Fong, and conquer the immortal world again. Yes, master. You only need a drop of blood, and I will take the initiative to fuse with you. Okay. After the sword spirit's reminder, Su Fong flicked his finger, and a drop of essence blood fell on the sword. With a flash of thought, a bloody light appeared, and the blood was swallowed by the Samsara Sword. Then the sword took the initiative to drill into Su Fong's palm. This was the extraordinariness of a peerless Dao treasure. There was a world of difference between it and ordinary Dao treasures. Now he understood why Yin Senshin, a special disciple, could release such a peerless power that could shatter the Nether Guards. Because he had the dual swords of destruction. Sensing that the Samsara Sword was quietly fusing with his body, Su Fong was even more excited. He came to the seal next to him and looked. There was a huge cauldron in this seal. At this time, it was 3 feet high, red and bronze, and had 3 legs. Master, the Samsara Sword suddenly introduced in his body. This is the first cauldron used to refine magic treasures when the old master was alive. It is called the Heavenly Cauldron of Good Fortune. Its quality is the same as mine, a King Grey Dao treasure. It is above the best Grey Dao treasure. The Underworld Great Emperor's bottle that you fused with came from this Heavenly Cauldron of Good Fortune. Good treasure, good treasure. I feel that this cauldron can suppress a big hole in heaven and earth. A peerless Dao treasure cauldron. Su Fong had been looking for a good cauldron. This one was really good. The Heavenly Cauldron of Good Fortune. This cauldron is a powerful Tao treasure refined by the old master's good friend, the dead king. The Samsara sword spirit said tirelessly, "The dead king was one of the old master's best friends when he was alive. He practiced evil methods and once became the #1 person in the evil way. He was as powerful as the old master. The dead king was a good person, with the heavenly cauldron of good fortune and Su Fang's refining knowledge and methods. He could refine magic treasures in the future. Of course, it could also improve the quality of his Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda, Flaming Cloud Spiritual Gourd, Starry Daylight Sword, and other magic treasures. He couldn't fuse with such a big cauldron in a short time. He could only look at it and sigh. He came to a seal at the side. Inside it was a long blood-red river that emitted a strong aura of magic treasures. Samsara, what kind of treasure is this? Su Fang stared at the long blood-red river curiously. This is called the Yellow Spring Divine Tao, and it was also one of the old master's greatest regrets. The old master wanted to refine a magic treasure to better control the Yellow Spring immortal world. The Yellow Spring Divine Tao condenses the two great abilities of the Yellow Spring Blood Sea and the Yellow Spring Reincarnation Technique. Once it is successfully refined, it can be turned into the origin of the immortal world. Originally, the old master wanted to pass it on to you so that you could continue to refine it. But later, he said that his cultivation method was not perfect and that you could only refine a magic treasure even more perfect than the Yellow Spring Divine Tao when you truly have the strength. Isn't it a pity? The old master was right. I followed the old master for so many years. I know his cultivation method like the back of my hand. If it was perfect, it wouldn't have attracted heavenly punishment. Master, you can forget about this magic treasure. You can study it in the future. When you surpass the old master in the future, you'll be able to refine a peerless magic treasure on the Yellow Springs Divine Tao. The old master believes that his successor can do it. Fine, it's still a pity. The Yellow Springs Divine Tao. Seeing the blood-red river, Su Fang could imagine what kind of peerless magic treasure the Yellow Springs Great Emperor would refine. He came to another seal. Inside it was also a King Grey Tao artifact. Another King Grey Tao artifact. In the past, he couldn't touch any of them. Now, one after another. In any immortal world, a King Grey Tao artifact was a peerless treasure. That was why so many people were willing to risk their lives to snatch the Yellow Springs Great Emperor's treasure. The King Grey Tao artifact in the seal didn't wait for Su Fang to speak. Unexpectedly, it let out a surprised sound. Law exclaimed, "This should be a very ancient magic treasure. It's called the Xianming Thunder Archive. It's a peerless Tao artifact like the Xinjia Gate. It's famous in ancient times." Su Fang listened and drooled. Xianming Thunder Archive, reincarnation, is it? Yes, the mysterious consciousness in your body is really extraordinary. The underworld reincarnation sword should have heard Law's voice. After all, it had fused with Su Fang. It was surprised. There are very few people who can recognize the Xianming Thunder Archive, and even fewer now. He also knows about the Xinjia Gate. This Xianming Thunder Archive and the Xinjia Gate are ancient Tao artifacts. They are both existences of the same level. Your sword spirit is also not bad, but in my era, I have never heard of your existence. Law suddenly spoke to the reincarnation sword spirit. As a treasure, there are very few people in this world who can comprehend the power of reincarnation. So I've been waiting since I came to consciousness. I have met two masters. The Yellow Springs Great Emperor is the second master, and he is much more powerful than the first master. I have heard of the Xianming Thunder Archive, but I have never seen it. Tell us about its origin. Law suddenly became modest. This is a treasure that the old master, the Yellow Springs Great Emperor, left this immortal domain and went to an ancient battlefield of immortals and demons outside the immortal domain. It is also the first magic treasure of the old master. After obtaining the magic treasure, the old master spent many years to fuse with it, but he still could not activate it. It is estimated that he could only activate it once by gathering all his strength. This treasure is very heaven-defying. Like the Xinjia Gate, It is a peerless treasure that has already reached the divine level and has divinity. Moreover, only a peerless cultivator who cultivates the thunder method can activate the Xianming Thunder Archive. It is a thunder magic treasure, and when activated, its power is ranked second in the ancient Taoist field. No one dares to say that it is first. The sword spirit continued. After the old master obtained it, he had never used the Xianming Thunder Archive in his life. The old master did not have amazing attainments in thunder magic, and the consumption of energy to activate it was too shocking. The main reason was that the old master's other abilities and means were brilliant, and he could deal with peerless experts without using such a magic treasure. According to the old master's understanding, the Xianming Thunder Archive was the most powerful magic treasure in ancient times, the Green Cloud Immortal Sect. The great war of immortals and demons engulfed countless immortal domains, and the Green Cloud Immortal Sect was the #1 immortal Tao, and they presided over the war. Later, it disappeared in the war together with the demons. The Green Cloud Immortal Sect was destroyed in the war. Su Fang could not believe it for a long time. After a long time, he looked at the Xianming Thunder Archive and once again felt its extraordinariness. Indeed, it was floating not far from the heavenly creation cauldron, but the aura it released was absolutely domineering. If it were not for the shackles of the formation, Su Fang would have been shocked to death at this distance. He frowned. By the way, since the great emperor has the Xianming Thunder Archive, why didn't he use it to deal with the heavenly punishment? Kid, without waiting for the sword spirit to answer, Law smiled coldly. Magic treasures are not omnipotent. This is the first and second reason. The heavenly punishment has already surpassed the immortal realm. Even if the great emperor of the netherworld has the power to defy the heavens, or the ability, he can't resist the heavenly punishment. The sword spirit agreed. He's right. At that time, the heavenly punishment's aura was so strong that the old master did not resist. That's why the heavenly punishment's power could only attack the great emperor alone, and not the entire netherworld immortal realm. It can be said that the great emperor used his last moments to save countless living beings in the immortal realm. Then can I merge with this Xianming Thunder Archive? I don't know. It depends on the master's fate and whether or not he can master the peerless thunder technique. He could only look at the peerless treasures and sigh helplessly. Then he looked around. There were no more royal Grey Dao artifacts. There were more than 100 supreme Grey Dao artifacts, and they were of various shapes and sizes, floating in different formations. Although there were no more royal Grey Dao artifacts, any of the other magic treasures were treasures of the present age. Su Fang also found a few supreme-grade pill cauldrons. Now he had a place to refine pills. He had been looking for a peerless pill cauldron. With a few supreme-grade pill cauldrons, it would not be a problem to refine middle-grade, upper-grade, or even supreme-grade yin-yang immortal sky pills. The author's words, "Tomorrow, I'll be off. This year, I have to take a day off with everyone to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new." Chapter 1153. There were a total of 4 top-grade pill cauldrons. Each cauldron had a profound aura that the snake spirit immortal swallowing cauldron did not have. Using such a cauldron to refine pills, high-grade pills would not be a problem. Then, he looked at the rare treasures. Underworld Samsara Sword. The incomplete Yellow Springs Divine Tao. Heavenly Cauldron of Good Fortune. The Xianming Thunder Archive. Every single one of these treasures were rare treasures of their time. Countless cultivators had lost their lives for these treasures, but in the end, they all fell into Su Fang's hands. Apart from these treasures, there were also demonic Tao cultivation techniques, the Yellow Spring Emperor's experience in cultivating the reincarnation sword and reincarnation arts, as well as more than 100 supreme Grey Tao artifacts. The quality of these supreme Grey Tao artifacts was at least as high as the immortal piercing blade. Some are even a step away from reaching the king grade. He was rich. Hundreds of huge spirit veins floated in the surroundings like mountains. All kinds of spirit stones, gems, and spiritual items were hard to find. Su Fang even sensed some spiritual treasures or gemstones that contained the power of the 5 elements. At a glance, some of the gemstones were of the earth element, and possessed astonishing power. They seemed to be on the verge of turning into consciousness. He could use them to cultivate the Xian Huang Six Paths Pagoda, as well as his own cultivation method. There were too many treasures. This was a treasure trove. Now, I don't have to worry about resources at all. He calmed down. While fusing with the Yellow Springs reincarnation sword, he also planned to fuse with the Xianming Lightning Archive and the Good Fortune Big Dipper Cauldron. There were also 4 peak-grade medicinal cauldrons. After fusing the peak-grade medicinal cauldrons, the experts under Xiao Chun could refine superior-grade yin-yang immortal sky pills. There were too many things to do. Master, we're back. In the blink of an eye, a period of time passed. Su Fong, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly heard the voices of the great monk Shangde and the ghost Dao's 5 freaks. He immediately flew out of the crucible transformation realm and merged with Huangfu's cloud sea host body. The monk and the ghost Dao's 5 freaks had arrived, and they had brought 8 experts with them. Some of them were experts who had entered the space with the monk, while the others seemed to be related to the ghost Dao's 5 monsters. When the 8 of them saw Su Fong, they were all afraid. Of course, they didn't know who Su Fong was, nor did they know that he was the ghost-faced Rakshasa who had stolen the great emperor's treasure. Anyway, only by following him would they have a chance to leave this place. Otherwise, the great monk Shangde and the 5 freaks of the ghost Dao would not be so polite to Su Fong. After the 8 of them came to an agreement, not only did they each receive a top-grade Dao artifact, they also received the yin-yang immortal sky pellet. The 8 of them were either heavily injured or covered in injuries. Obviously, not only had they not obtained any benefit from the battle for the treasures this time, they'd gotten nothing instead. Presently, they were trapped in the outer realm as well. Once they received the benefits, Su Fong would naturally plant the sealing seeds in their bodies. At this moment, Grand Monk Shangde stepped forward. I've heard news of Yan Mo. It's said that he managed to kill his way out of the encirclement of the 4 great powers. However, no one knows where he is now. It's rumored that he brought some people with him, and seems to have already escaped from this outer realm. Really? It was a bit of a pity that they came from Emperor Ning's mansion. Back then, Emperor Ning's mansion sent someone to look for him, but he still couldn't figure out their purpose. Originally, he already had the strength and resources to deal with Yan Mo, but this person slipped away first. Everybody, go into the magic treasure space and practice calmly. Don't worry about anything else. At the same time, practice the grand joint divine skill. If you want magic treasures or resources, just ask. After the order was issued, the group of people was sucked into the Xinguang. Next, they continued to practice and wait as Huangfu Yanhai. After less than 3 years of waiting, Immortal Changgu sent them good news. The 4 great powers have already made contact with the experts they had arranged outside the outer realm long ago and established a space passage. Now the people of the 4 great powers are withdrawing bit by bit. They can leave now. Su Fong didn't want to take risks by relying on himself like last time when he cooperated with the 2nd primordial spirit and risked his life to escape from the outer realm alone. About the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Su Fong, as Huangfu Yanhai, appeared in the void not far from the mausoleum of the great emperor. As expected, there were more than 100 experts guarding a space seal above. Disciples of the 4 great powers would step into the seal from time to time. Huangfu Yanhai was a high-level member of the Star Palace. When he arrived at the formation, he had to verify his identity face-to-face before he was allowed to step into the space formation. It was the familiar feeling of weightlessness. Besides that, there were the auras of the 4 great powers. After a short while of weightlessness, there was a dazzling light in front of his eyes. A controlling power lifted him up from the state of weightlessness. His legs suddenly had weight, and he was surrounded by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Coincidentally, he was in an abyss in the outer realm. Around him were experts of the 4 great powers. Su Fong saw many familiar experts of the Star Palace. After chatting with some of them for a short while, he felt a calamity aura that was about to break through to the Xian immortal realm flowing from the depths of his body. He was about to break through. Using the identity of Huangfu Yanhai, he left the abyss. After a long time, he flew out of the crater and finally left the wasteland that was full of shackles. When he was in midair, he looked at the bottomless crater on the ground. There were auras of hundreds of thousands of disciples of the four great powers in the surroundings. It seemed that all the disciples of the four great powers were gathered near the crater. Peel, Huangfu Yinhai, the host body, trembled and turned into a Xianguang. Su Fong flew out from his body. At this moment, Ghost-Face Rakshasa, who had obtained the treasure of the Yellow Spring Emperor, disappeared. He was an ordinary disciple from the constellation of Nine Heavens. There was a mountain range in the distance, now that the four great powers would not leave in a short time. After all, they still wanted to find the treasure of the Yellow Spring Emperor. Su Fong could cultivate near the crater. After an hour, he and his second primordial spirit arrived at the mountain range. In this mountain range, there were auras of cultivators. Most of them were disciples of the four great powers, but there were also some powerful figures. After finding a mountain range that had no auras within a radius of 20 miles, Su Fong came to the mountainside and looked at Huangfu Yunhai, second primordial spirit. Return to my divine aperture world. You and I will merge. From the 9 Tao realms of the heavenly immortal realm to the Xian immortal realm, our primordial spirits will be strengthened together. With this host body guarding by the side, even if auras of tribulation auras appear, outsiders will not dare to act recklessly. Huangfu Yinhai pointed at himself. Since we have obtained everything, we can also give up this host body. After a while, I will lack energy when I break through to the Xian immortal realm. I can devour this host body. It will be quite useful. The main body smiled. The second primordial spirit flew out of the host body's mind with the light of the mark and entered Su Fong's forehead. After the formation, Huangfu Yinhai stood outside the barrier and released the aura of the constellation of Nine Heavens to guard this area. Even if someone sensed the aura of tribulation, they would not dare to have any thoughts. Who would dare to touch a high-level member of the four great powers in the territory of the four great powers? Spirit, gathering formation, defensive formation, sensing formation. They turned into a barrier that covered 1 mile of the mountainside. Some weak spiritual energy seeped in from the starry fog. Using the 9 heavenly stars minor art and ethereal enlightenment, the heaven and earth sensed the power of the technique and began to absorb the essence of heaven and earth and borrow the power of the stars. However, only a part of the spiritual energy entered the formation. After all, this was a wasteland. It was very difficult for ordinary cultivators to absorb even the slightest bit of spiritual energy. However, Su Fong could absorb 100 times more spiritual energy than ordinary cultivators. It was already unbelievable. To Su Fong, who needed to break through and recover from his injuries, this was a drop in the bucket. Looking at the current situation, other than devouring pills, he was not in a hurry to break through to the Xian immortal realm. After all, he had obtained the Emperor's treasure and was surrounded by the four great powers. He did not have to worry about anything, especially since he was no longer the Ghost-Face Rakshasa. He was just an ordinary heavenly immortal disciple who came from the constellation of 9 heavens that no one knew about. Above the heavenly immortal realm is the Xian immortal realm. Breaking through requires a lot of spiritual energy. This little bit of spiritual energy is far from enough. Within the formation, as he cultivated and breathed, he continued to use the ethereal enlightenment and the 9 heavenly stars minor art to absorb the essence of heaven and earth, allowing more spiritual energy to enter the formation. Some of his hair was still white. The effects of using the life shrinking technique last time had not recovered. In the Tao palace of heaven and earth within his body, which was also the yin-yang Tao wheel, the underworld samsara sword was fusing his yang power and the power of the yin and yang world. There was no need for Su Fong to control it. The sword spirit was actively fusing with it. At the same time, it also began to fuse with the Xianming Thunder Archive. This was a treasure that Su Fong was very interested in. Moreover, it was a King Grey Tao artifact that was as sharp as the 10 Tao artifacts. It was above countless treasures in the celestial world and looked down on the heavens. I don't have a powerful lightning-type cultivation technique. Although the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda has lightning-type divine power, the lightning-type cultivation technique inside is only a few hand seals and is only at the level of a small world. When I came to the Great World, I also encountered some lightning-type cultivation techniques, but they were all ordinary. In order to activate the Xianming Thunder Archive, I still need the most powerful lightning-type cultivation technique. Fortunately, I have fused with the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, and there is a lightning-type energy supporting me. To fuse with the Xianming Thunder Archive. At this moment, Su Fang's breathing was very tense. After chatting with Su Fang and letting him recover a little, the Samsara Sword Spirit carefully entered the storage ring left by the Emperor of Netherworld. When he came to the formation that sealed the Xianming Thunder Archive, the Sword Spirit reminded him, "Master, if your blood and qi get close to the wheel sword, there will be a slight repulsion. You must not fuse with it. Its momentum is too horrible. Once it explodes, even the storage ring will be broken." After concentrating, he looked at the Xianming Thunder Archive. This magic treasure was about a foot long and as wide as a palm. It was bluish-white and had some ancient immortal patterns. It looked like a bluish-white jade. It should not be underestimated. A drop of blood was condensed and slowly entered the formation. As it approached the Xianming Thunder Archive, Su Fang's eyes widened and his heart almost jumped out of his throat. The bloody light approached the quiet Xianming Thunder Archive bit by bit. As it got closer, the Xianming Thunder Archive was still very quiet. When the bloody light was one finger away, the Xianming Thunder Archive still did not move. Su Fang finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that such a magic treasure did not repel his breath. Only then did he feel relieved. He condensed a few more drops of blood and dripped them on the Xianming Thunder Archive. It felt that the Xianming Thunder Archive was like a sponge, absorbing the blood in an instant. After absorbing it, Su Fang slowly approached and found that the Xianming Thunder Archive still did not move. However, after more than 10 breaths, some immortal patterns on the surface seemed to become channels. Bursts of blood-red thunder light began to flow along the immortal patterns and gradually entangled and wrapped the Xianming Thunder Archive. At this moment, the Xianming Thunder Archive finally had a state of being awakened. Before Su Fang felt a sense of fusion, a cold voice came from the Xianming Thunder Archive. "Samsara Sword Spirit, long time no see. Xianming, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Since the death of the old master, you have been in self-sealing." The sigh of the Samsara Sword came from Su Fang's body. "This is my new master." The Xianming Thunder Archive suddenly stood upright, as if there were eyes looking at Su Fang. "Compared with the Emperor of the Netherworld, your cultivation is really insignificant. But I don't know why such a small person like you can get my approval. Strange, strange. Is it because you're the successor of the Emperor of the Netherworld?" Su Fang gathered courage from nowhere. "Device Spirit, I am Su Fang. From now on, I hope to get your approval. I don't have the strength, but I will be as powerful as the Emperor in the future. Since ancient times, I have seen too many cultivators. Even the Yellow Spring Great Emperor was only as short as a shooting star. I also hope that there will be a master who can truly activate me. A magic treasure has to be as bright as a star. You can't activate me now. Let's talk about it again when you have the ability." Suddenly, the blood-red thunder light on the Xianming Thunder Archive, together with the immortal patterns, seemed to be frozen. Chapter 1154. What an arrogant magic treasure. After he finished speaking, the Xianming Thunder Scroll fell silent, leaving Su Fang standing there with his eyes wide open. It was strange. Since it was fused with blood, he couldn't activate it. How could there be such a magic treasure in the world? He couldn't figure it out. What could he do with the Xianming Thunder Archive? Every word it said was true. A disciple in the celestial realm could activate such a peerless Taoist instrument. Even the Emperor of Netherworld could barely activate it. Facing such a blow from the magic treasure, he was not affected at all. Instead, he was calm. At least he didn't need to seal the Xianming Thunder Archive and could return to his body. He released the Xian Guang and sucked the Xianming Thunder Archive into the Yin Yang Tao wheel. Heaven and Earth Tao Palace. You have the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace. Just as it flew out of the storage ring, Su Fong was about to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and prepare to break through when the Xianming Thunder Archive was surprised. The sword spirit of Samsara also said, "Of course, he is the inheritor of the old master. How can he be an ordinary person? I'm not as powerful as you, but I feel that there is a supreme power in master. Somehow, when I come into his body, I have to obey his orders." I mean the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace. It is almost impossible for the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace to appear in the body of an immortal. It is a kind of godhood that can help one become a god and ascend to the universe. Isn't it good for Master to have a godhood? We will assist Master well. In the future, Master will surpass the old Master and surpass the immortals we have witnessed. He will break free from the shackles of the immortal realm and ascend to the universe where the gods are said to be. You and I will also be promoted to supreme divine artifacts, instead of just having a little divinity. No wonder I was awakened. In the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace, a cultivator with such a godhood is rare in the world. I have only seen a few people in the long years, and they're all the strongest in the immortal realm. Well, Su Fong, I also look forward to the day when you have the ability to activate me. The two treasures communicated in their bodies. Finally, the Xianming Thunder Archive transmitted its voice to Su Fong with an expectant tone and fell asleep in the yin-yang Tao wheel. Su Fong was confused, but someone should know. Su Fong immediately released the Yang Immortal and escaped into the Blood Jade. Law, I knew you would come. Do you want to know what the Xianming Thunder Archive is? Law was indeed Law. He immediately guessed Su Fong. Without waiting for Su Fong to snap out his daze, he continued, "Things like godhood or the Tao Palace of heaven and earth are very rare even in the greater worlds. Only 1 out of 100 million people may have one. Even the Yuanlu Great World and Immortal Ao Great World, which rarely produce a genius with a Tao Palace of heaven and earth. Usually, only 1 or 2 will appear in an immortal domain. You are probably one of the few in this immortal domain. I never thought that cultivating the 9 yang 9 transformations and forming the yin-yang Tao wheel would make me a godhood. The latter still didn't understand. A godhood isn't a true body, nor is it a desolate physique, Tao physique, or divine physique. It's a kind of genius halo, the embodiment of a superior being. For example, some people are born with the aura of wealth. They will definitely become rich. Some people are born with a natural affinity for the sword and will become a sword expert in the future. Most of the people in the Tao Palace came here by chance. This is a fortuitous encounter because no one knows how a godhead was born. But all godheads have one thing in common, which is that they are shockingly talented. However, you became a godhead by cultivating the 9 yang 9 transformations. It only means that your 9 yang 9 transformations is a peerless technique that surpasses any technique in the world. I've never seen such a technique before. Law was also very surprised and confused in the Blood Jade. But at least he could tell that Su Fong had become a godhood because he cultivated the 9 yang 9 transformations. Law smiled. Godhood is very rare in the myriad worlds and the divine realms. That's because they don't rely on techniques, but on luck and opportunity. That's why a godhood is even rarer than a desolate physique, Tao physique, or even divine physique cultivator. Kid, you should hide the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace well. Don't let anyone know about this secret. Thankfully, very few people in the great world know about godhood, unless they have a certain understanding of the divine realms. Of course, there are plenty of people like that. He didn't hear any more secrets about godhood, but he was even more certain that Law was knowledgeable. There was probably nothing in the great world that Law didn't know. He knew about most of the treasures from the ancient era. He even talked about the godhood experts and the legendary god domains. Su Fong sensed that the formation had gathered a lot of spiritual qi. He had long since reached the peak of the 9th heavenly immortal realm. It was time to break through to the profound immortal realm. Before he knew it, 5 years had passed. After forming the seal, his strength began to surge. Shi Wan's entire body began to circulate with a minor circulation first, followed by a major circulation. His body was full of genuine qi. He felt a pain that was about to be torn apart by the genuine qi. Whoosh! In less than half a day, he could have broken through to the profound immortal realm when he received the inheritance and power of the Emperor. It was even easier now. A gust of tribulation qi spurted out. Then, he was surrounded by tribulation fire. A force of nothingness permeated the world. Then, there were some stormy clouds in the starry mist. The aura of tribulation was surging in the clouds. Then, the clouds in all directions surged into the sky and swallowed the starry mist. Ninth tribulation come. With the host Huangfu Yinhai standing guard outside, he was very safe. He flew out of the formation and reached a height of 300 feet. His body was full of burning starry flames. The other forces were hidden deep inside his body. Phew, the tribulation was also formed. The thick tribulation clouds were like a huge demon looking down. In an instant, a beam of tribulation light descended from the tribulation clouds like a destructive divine ability. It furiously attacked Su Fong. Whoosh! With a flick of his finger, a sword qi condensed in the air and rushed toward the tribulation light. Boom! He didn't expect that the seemingly terrifying tribulation light would collapse and shatter under the sword qi's impact. This was because Su Fong was strong. He had long stepped into the profound immortal realm, and the power of the tribulation was only around the profound immortal realm. There were only a few people in the great world who could pass the tribulation so easily. The second tribulation came rolling in. There were still 2 beams of tribulation light, but it was more powerful than before. But Su Fong still controlled the sword qi. When the 2 beams of tribulation light were in the air, the sword qi suddenly slashed from the middle. With a boom, the power of the 2 beams of tribulation light was cut in half from the middle. They shattered in the air. After shattering the second tribulation, Su Fong couldn't absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The third tribulation was a series of thunder, descending from the shocking dark clouds of tribulation that were almost 2.5 miles long. The 3 bolts of tribulation lightning were like 3 lightning snakes. They fell from the sky, and even the desolate aura in the wasteland and the shackles of the divine power were crushed. Obviously, the power of the third tribulation had surpassed the power of the heaven immortal realm. It was so terrifying. No wonder the profound immortals were all core disciples of the major sections. In the end, such a powerful lightning tribulation was still slashed by Su Fong's sword qi. In less than 10 breaths of time, it was slashed by the sword qi like a headless fly, running about in midair and even exploding. Next, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th tribulations were easily shattered by the sword qi. However, when it came to the 9th tribulation, more than half of the dark cloud's energy seemed to have been completely absorbed by the tribulation, and then it transformed into an expanse of energy. There was a total of 9 layers that fused together, and they whistled as they descended from the sky. Not to mention destructive force. Even the shapeless, baleful aura and divine might wanted to crush everything. This time, Su Fong still executed sword qi. But the difference was that it was an expanse of starlight sword qi that had transformed into a sword formation. The sword formation was like an enormous spinning kite that buzzed as it rose against the heavens. It buzzed first, and then it was the sizzling sound of sword qi that swept through the surroundings. Bang! 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 The 9 heavenly tribulations bombarded the sword formation one after another. In the beginning, the sword formation was still very strong. However, as the heavenly tribulations were shattered one by one, the remaining 3 heavenly tribulations completely shattered the sword formation and continued to fall on Su Fong. The power of the last wave of tribulation was too terrifying. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would definitely have to use powerful Dharma treasures and make various preparations to survive such a great tribulation. Su Fong stood up resolutely with his hands behind his back. Another sword formation appeared around him. This time, there was no need to form a seal. The sword formation shot into the sky, and the last 3 waves of tribulation struck together. After a series of explosions, the tribulation was completely shattered. Then, an auspicious aura seeped down from the tribulation. When he returned to the formation, this auspicious aura made his body feel weightless, as light as a feather. Then, he felt a sense of relaxation that he had never felt before. He hurriedly summoned more than a dozen powerful big goblin and some injured experts, and let them enter the depths of the formation to absorb this auspicious aura. They also took the opportunity to swallow all kinds of elixirs, using the divine might of heaven and earth to help refine the power of the elixirs. Under this auspicious aura, Su Fong began to welcome the shattering and impact. His entire body was bleeding, and impurities emerged from the depths of his body, emitting a foul smell. After a series of impacts, he was still in pain. As the auspicious aura slowly retreated, the advancement also seemed to calm down. Suddenly, his senses were different. Even if he did not use his great perfection stage ability, he could see a few miles away when he looked at the surrounding nature. His body still felt weightless, as if there was no weight at all. Sensing his body, it turned out that his meridians were more than 5 times deeper. Other places were also obviously different from when he was in the heavenly immortal realm. For example, his golden core origin had become bigger, and his mind's divine aperture had become more solid. The young immortal inside was constantly transforming, stripping, and fusing. His second primordial spirit was also fusing with the sorrow rune, absorbing the power of advancement. His second primordial spirit also took the opportunity to fuse with the sorrow rune on a deeper level. Su Fong hurriedly swallowed the elixirs. 10 high-grade elixirs were directly swallowed into his body. We looked at his body again. There was a Tao mark everywhere. Mystic Immortal Realm. Mystic Immortal Realm. After adapting to his body, Su Fong felt that his body was now compatible with the galaxy and nature, reaching an unfathomable level. It was an untouchable realm, because at this moment, he was no longer a heavenly immortal, but a mystic immortal. After becoming a mystic immortal, the feeling is indeed mysterious. There's a natural feeling of following my heart to cultivate. It can be said that I'm going with the flow. Now, I'm finally a qualified core disciple. I can also be considered an expert, and I am one step closer to the strength of an expert like the Elder. With my current strength, I still can't compete with the Elder, but any mystic immortal realm cultivator is not my opponent. Huangfu Sea of Clouds, your mission is finally worthless at this moment. After devouring you, I can reach a very high level of the mystic immortal realm. Become my nutrients. With a wave of his hand, the Huangfu Sea of Clouds in the array formation drilled into his palm. Chapter 1155. In this barren mountain range, there were already many experts who had reached the level of elders. They were all shocked by the star mark that a heavenly immortal cultivator had summoned. At this moment, in the depths of countless eyes, Su Fong, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly shouted, "Kid, stop cultivating. If you continue like this, countless people will look for the reason why you summoned the heavenly omen. Why aren't you dismantling you piece by piece for research?" It was Luo. The ethereal true scripture is still the ethereal true scripture. I feel like there's something more to it. Su Fong had yet to react. It turned out that many of the immortal characters of the ethereal true scripture in his mind were different. The ethereal 10,000 laws Tao that the human emperor had cultivated back then was just a cultivation technique that he had comprehended by himself from the ethereal true scripture. However, after stepping into the profound immortal realm, he had unexpectedly gained some understanding of the ethereal true scripture. He did not expect to summon such a heavenly omen at the same time. He immediately formed a seal and sealed the immortal characters that he had comprehended. His true chi immediately disappeared around him. The distorted light above him disappeared. The star mark in the sky suddenly lost control and slowly began to dissipate. You're a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens. The elders of the fire overflowing divine sun sect were the first to arrive. They looked at him up and down as if he was a monster. Moreover, their gazes were filled with powerful divine pressure. Of course, this is a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens, Huangfu, Shaoying. This made Su Fang almost unable to breathe. The higher-ups of Huiyin Shinrikyo were high and mighty. They could bully a profound, immortal cultivator like him whenever they wanted. Fortunately, a large number of constellation of 9 heavens experts flew over. The leader was not only Out Yin Chanhen, but also another elder. Su Fang was not surprised when he sensed Out Yin Chanhen's aura. What made him curious was that the elder beside him had a shocking aura of the Huangfu clan. It was much stronger than Huangfu Yunhai's aura. They were not on the same level at all. This person was definitely a big shot from one of the 9 great dojos of Star Palace, Huangfu Elder. Brother Huangfu, Brother Out Yin. When the experts from Huiyin Shinrikyo saw so many powerful people from Star Palace, they immediately hid all kinds of divine power within their bodies. Is Star Palace going to produce a genius? Suddenly, 2 more groups of people flew over. On one side were the experts of the Clear Sky Thousand Scrolls Gate, and on the other side were the Brahma Meditation sect. There were dozens of people from both sides, and they were all elders. At this moment, the cultivators who appeared in front of the Su Fang were the elders of the 4 great powers and the true upper echelons. There were no special disciples, and even special disciples were not qualified to appear here. One of the important figures in Huiyin Shinrikyo had the same status as Out Yin Chanhen and Elder Huangfu. He nodded and said, "Both of you, this disciple of yours has just advanced to the mystic immortal realm. I don't know what kind of cultivation technique he is cultivating, but it isn't your sect's Xiaoxiang art. Let me see." A white-haired old man from the Clear Sky Thousand Scrolls Gate was wearing a plain robe with many Tao patterns. As he spoke, everyone stared at him and said, "This is a legend that everyone knows. It is the ethereal enlightenment. I remember that in the immortal Ao great world, there was also a heavenly omen that appeared once. It was a person who cultivated the ethereal enlightenment and inherited the power of the legendary ethereal spiritual master. Powerful. The Clear Sky Thousand Scrolls Gate indeed had countless cultivation techniques. Every disciple was good at using divine powers. Hence, they were very familiar with the cultivation techniques of the great world. This white-haired old man was really extraordinary. Ethereal enlightenment. All of a sudden, the surrounding experts looked at Su Fang with curious and astonished gazes. When he was about to stand up, he did not expect that the hundreds of experts, no, the experts further behind, would release their primordial spirits to see through his body. It was obvious that they wanted to find something from him and then expose Su Fang's secrets. These people, a divine power that could not be controlled or defended against, and even condensed into vital energy, crazily surged into his body from all directions. It was as if he was fighting against the consciousness and divine power of countless experts alone. Ao Tianzhonghen's eyes suddenly turned sharp and said, "Young man, why are you not activating the 3 Xian sword talismans that I gave you? Thank you for your guidance." Ao Tianzhonghen. Su Fang almost fell into a state of helplessness. Before long, the defense of his flesh membrane and vital energy would be seen through by countless eyes. When he heard Ao Tianzhonghen's voice, he instantly had a plan to deal with it. Back then, Ao Tianzhonghen gave him 3 Xian sword talismans. Now that he had absorbed almost half of the power, Su Fang was reluctant to part with the talismans. He had completely absorbed the power of the talismans. On one hand, he felt that the talismans from Ao Tianzhonghen could help him cultivate in the Star Palace. After all, he had a token from a dojo elder. Who would dare to touch him? On the other hand, he felt that the talismans from Ao Tianzhonghen would be useful one day if he kept them. He did not expect that day to come so soon. Pa 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 3 Xian sword talismans flew out from his body. On Su Fang's flesh membrane and skin, there was an explosion of shocking sword chi. At the same time, Ao Tianzhonghen, who was not far away, had a sharp and deep look in his eyes. It was as if he was secretly releasing a supernatural power to help Su Fong secretly. Bang! A terrifying aura suddenly turned into a ring of gang qi outside of Su Fong's body. It pounced out ferociously with an aura that was like a sandstorm. This caused everyone's divine power and sensing consciousness to be forced out of Su Fong's body. They were either overturned or crushed directly. Ao Tianzhonghen is so strong. His Xian sword talisman does not have such power. This is invisible. Did he activate the Xian sword talisman personally? This time, I owe him another favor. He finally felt relaxed, no longer being stared at covetously by everyone. During this process, more experts from the Four Forces and other cultivators came to a mile away from the periphery. They first looked at the star mark that was about to disappear in the sky, then looked at Su Fong, who was standing among a large number of giants. They were all in disbelief. Huang Fu Xiaoying. Among the experts from Star Palace, there was a lady who was treated with respect by everyone. She was Huang Fu Fei. Her face was filled with surprise. It's you. You're just a heavenly celestial. No, a Xian celestial. You can create such a heavenly omen. In the big world, there hasn't been a heavenly omen for many years. This person's cultivation speed is too shocking. First, he stepped into the heavenly celestial realm in a few decades. Now he has cultivated to the Xian celestial realm in such a short time. I remember that he has only joined Star Palace for less than 300 years. In the past, I thought that you were quite capable. Now, I see that you are becoming more and more unfathomable. Luckily, you are just a Xian celestial. It's time for you to teach me. Huang Fu Fei suddenly smiled. Some of the men who were secretly attracted by her beauty were mesmerized. Everyone, Huang Fu Elder and Ao Tianchonghen, took a step in the air and stood beside Su Fong. Then, Elder Huang Fu cupped his fists at the surrounding cultivators. This is a disciple of our sect. We do not wish to be disturbed by anyone. Please leave. Now, the main thing is to look for the treasure of the Emperor of Yellow Spring. As for the heavenly omen brought by this disciple, it is a private matter of our sect. Please allow us to make a move. Let him go first. Return to the campsite. Leave the rest to me. Ao Tianchonghen continued to look in all directions. Swoosh! Elder Huang Fu Elder waved his hand and revealed an invisible control. He lifted Su Fong. In front of everyone, he actually had the ability to leap through the air and disappeared in a flash. This was the speed and ability that an ordinary elder should have. 2 breaths later, it was still the abyss of the crater. However, at the border, there were many valleys around a strange peak. In the middle, there was a huge valley. The surrounding valleys had all sorts of barriers and seals that released auras. With one look, one could tell that this was the campsite of the constellation of 9 heavens. The third breath. In the centermost barrier, 2 phantoms appeared in the air. First, it was Elder Huang Fu. Then it was Su Fong, who was in a weightless state. As soon as the 2 of them arrived, several elders strode over from the other side of the barrier. There were about a dozen of them. Su Fong had never seen most of them before. However, he did not expect Heavenly Master Luan of the Treasure Mystic Realm to be among them. Xiaoying, as the person in charge of Su Fong's cultivation, Heavenly Master Luan immediately went forward and expressed his concern. Everyone sit. The elders sat around Su Fong. Everyone was obviously anxious. They want to know what had happened to Su Fong. One of the elders seemed to be an elder of another sect. His aura revealed the origin of the Bodhi spiritual realm. Su Fong remembered that the Bodhi spiritual realm elder's name was Yuling Tian. It had to be him. Yuling Tian said, "Before the first wave is over, another wave is coming. The great emperor's treasure is now in the hands of a mysterious cultivator called Ghostface Rakshasa. Rumor has it that this person is related to the Huyin Shinrikyo. However, some say that the mask came from the celestial demon mountain. Anyway, that person would not wear a mask and wander around. This time, it will be difficult for us to get the great emperor's treasure. Then, there is the matter of Huang Fu, Xiaoying." Whoosh, everyone looked at Su Fong again. Heavenly Master Luan waved his hand at Su Fong and asked, "Tell us, Why did you attract the heavenly omen? Elder Huangfu also said, what Elder Luan means is that it is not the sect that wants to know your secret. Every cultivator has their own secrets. However, most people keep their secrets to themselves. However, your secret is now known by everyone in the world. Since ancient times, cultivators who can attract the heavenly omen either have unique treasures or peerless techniques. Any of these reasons can prevent any cultivator from spying on you. I am your disciple. He cannot hide it. He cannot hide it at all. If it was at the moment when Tian Zhaoshen was still alive, it might have been possible. However, now that he was publicly acknowledged by the elders of the Gate of Myriad Scrolls, he could not lie anymore, especially now that he had attracted everyone's attention because of the heavenly omen. If he did not rely on the constellation of 9 heavens, he would be in danger. Su Fong immediately bowed. I only obtained a fragment of a manual in the small world. It was kept by an immortal called Ren Huang. I followed the cultivation experience in the manual and cultivated from the small world to the large world. However, I did not make any progress. However, I found one advantage. When I was cultivating this manual, it could be used with the 9 heavenly stars minor art. It allowed my cultivation speed to increase beyond imagination. After entering the sect, I kept on breaking through at an astonishing speed. An elder praised in front of everyone, so he is an ascender. Elder Luan is such a genius. He should not have entered your treasured artifact's secret realm. He should have entered the grand ancient dojo or even a special dojo to cultivate. The manual is the legendary ethereal true enlightenment. Yuling Tian asked again. Yes, the manual is indeed the ethereal true enlightenment. Later on, when I came to the large world, I specially collected information. Now, the records of the large world regarding the ethereal true enlightenment are similar to what I obtained. At that time, I wanted to give up on cultivating it, but I could not bear to do so. Who would have thought that because of the mystic immortal realm, I would suddenly enter a state of emptiness? It was as if I had entered a world of darkness through the ethereal true enlightenment. I remember, many years ago, there was a heavenly omen in the immortal AO great world. According to the unofficial records, it was indeed an immortal called Ren Huang who caused the heavenly omen. However, later on, he was hunted down by many immortals. Later on, no one knows what happened to him. I have also heard of this. After all, the ethereal true enlightenment is rumored to be a supreme manual. No one knows what it is exactly. But who would have thought? Everyone has their own opportunities and luck. Huangfu and Shaoying can rely on their own cultivation to comprehend the ethereal true enlightenment that everyone knows. They're not simple. All of a sudden, all the elders looked at Su Fong in a new light.